Chapter 3675. Knock, knock, knock. Everything was just as Bailey Hongzhuang had expected. Someone knocked on the door outside the house. Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked, and her face turned even redder. Beichun, outside. Deep Beichun waved his hand, and his elemental energy immediately surrounded the room, completely isolating the sound from the outside. You. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. Her hands were pressed against Di Beichun's warm chest, and her face was filled with helplessness. It could be Palace Master or Lord Long outside. It's fine, they won't be so tactless. Di Beichun's lips curled, and his smile became even more devilish. But, Di Beichun planted a deep kiss on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. Why focus? Long Yanwei and Easy Huan knocked on the door for a while, but there was no response. The two of them looked at each other and couldn't help but frown. What was going on? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang and Easy Hua had already predicted that they would come here, so they closed the door and refused to see them? Seeing this, Xiren couldn't help but walk over. Greetings, Lord Long, teacher. When Xiren, do you know why Bailey Hongzhuang and Easy Hua didn't open the door? Long Yanwei asked. Didn't open the door? Xiren frowned. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. He quickly reacted and swallowed the words in his mouth. Although his heart was still filled with doubts, he naturally made up a lie. Hongzhuang previously told me that she felt that the seniors in the inner palace had a huge demand for this healing medicine, so she wanted to make more. In order to prevent others from disturbing them, they might have used their elemental energy to isolate the sound from the outside. After hearing Xiren's explanation, Long Yanwei and Easy Hua finally understood, and they felt even more gratified in their hearts. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually think so much for her senior brothers and sisters in the inner palace. Master Long, why don't you go back first? When Hongzhuang and the others come out, I'll tell them to go to your palace. How about that? Long Yanwei nodded. All right, tell them that I have something to discuss with them. When Xiren heaved a sigh of relief after Long Yanwei and the other man had left, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other man's tightly shut door and felt extremely puzzled. What are Beichun and the others busy with right now? Logically speaking, he shouldn't have suddenly gone into seclusion. Shangguan Yingying heard the commotion outside and walked over. Maybe they're busy with something? Why don't we ask them when they come out? When Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun opened the door, Long Yanwei and the others had already left. Bailey Hongzhuang glared angrily at Deep Beichun, but when her expression fell into Deep Beichun's eyes, it became extremely flirtatious. Wife, if you continue to look at your husband like that, your husband might not be able to control himself. Deep Beichun smiled wickedly. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned and guiltily withdrew her gaze. This guy had always been powerful, but he was also so powerful in this aspect. She had always been willing to admit defeat. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had been paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and the other man's movements. At this moment, when they heard the commotion, they immediately rushed over. Beichun, Master Long, and Teacher, he came looking for you just now, but what were you two busy with? Why didn't you open the door? Chapter 3676. Looking at Di Beichun's matter-of-fact and unguilty look, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a burst of admiration in her heart. If she didn't know what was going on, she would have believed Di Beichun's righteous look at this moment. Di Beichun glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang from the corner of his eyes, as if to ask, I not telling the truth? Bailey Hongzhuang laughed in her heart. Back then, who knows how many people were deceived by Di Beichun's expression. This guy was actually a bad person. Master Long and the others must have come looking for you because of the healing medicine. I think you should hurry up and take a look. When Xiren said, Di Beichun nodded. Hongzhuang and I will go over now. Do you want to go together? We won't go. Xiren waved his hand. This healing medicine was made by Hongzhuang. It would be inconvenient for us to go together. In this matter, they had no intention of taking advantage of Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, it was not easy for Bailey Hongzhuang to develop this healing medicine. They had already benefited a lot from it. It would be inappropriate for them to go together now. Di Beichen also understood Xiren's thoughts and immediately said, "Then Hong Zhuang and I will go and take a look first." "Go quickly." Shanghuan Yingying smiled. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived at the bedroom, Long Yanwei and Izihua were obviously waiting for them. "Greetings, Master Long and Teacher Yi." The two bowed respectfully. Long Yanwei waved his hand. "I called you here today to discuss something with you." "Please speak, Master Long. The Palace Master already knows about this healing medicine." According to the Palace Master's idea, the best way to deal with this healing medicine in the future is to choose to exchange points. This is the fairest and most convenient way. Long Yanwei said slowly, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and Izihua, paying attention to the changes in their expressions. Hearing this answer, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen remained calm, but in their hearts, they already knew that the situation was exactly the same as Di Beichen thought. If this healing medicine is to be exchanged with points, then the quantity of this healing medicine must be increased. Bailey Hongzhuang alone may not be enough to make it. Therefore, the Palace Master hopes that you can hand over the prescription of this healing medicine. As a condition of exchange, you can ask for any heavenly treasure you want, as long as the Penglai Palace has it. At the same time, if this healing medicine is sold in the future, 20% of the profit will be yours. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression and said the conditions they had agreed on. Master Long has tried his best to fight for the best conditions for you. Zihua followed up and said, 20%, this profit is very considerable. Similarly, if you agree, then you can directly become an Inner Hall disciple because of your great contribution and enjoy the treatment of an Inner Hall disciple. If it was an ordinary disciple, it was absolutely impossible to have such treatment. It was only because of the relationship between Long Yanwei and Bailey Hongzhuang and others that the Palace Master offered such good conditions. Chapter 3677. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. They had already guessed that the Penglai Palace wanted to obtain the prescription. In fact, when Bailey Hongzhuang had decided to announce this news, she had already expected this to happen. Therefore, she did not find it strange at all. Long Yanwei saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had fallen into silence and could not help but say, "If you're unwilling, there's no need to be conflicted. You could tell me directly. You were the ones who had researched this prescription. Naturally, you have the right to decide." Long Yanwei did not find this strange at all. In fact, if it had been anyone else, they would not have been willing to hand it over. Izihua frowned. In fact, the Palace Master's offer was already very good. No matter how much healing medicine was sold in the future, 20% of it would belong to Bailey Hongzhuang. In this way, Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to get a lot of benefits without having to worry about anything. In comparison, this was undoubtedly much more convenient. Unfortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang was still unwilling. If the Palace Master were to find out about this result, he would definitely be very disappointed. However, at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly said, "All right, I agree." Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Long Yanwei and Izihua could not help but be stunned. They stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment and wondered if they had heard wrongly. "You said, you agree?" Long Yanwei asked with uncertainty. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her delicate head gently. Her voice was serious and steady as she said, "That's right, I agree." Seeing this, Long Yanwei and Izihua could not help but look at each other. In fact, when Bailey Hongzhuang had refused previously, they were not surprised. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly agreed, they found it hard to believe. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen naturally noticed the astonishment on Long Yanwei's and Di Beichen's faces. They couldn't help but feel a little amused. It was rare to see such an expression on the other party's face. It seemed that their decision had greatly exceeded Long Yanwei's and Di Beichen's expectations. "Are you really willing?" Long Yanwei asked again. "Don't do something against your will because of the Hall Master's pressure or my existence. We all know how precious this prescription is. If he had been rejected, Long Yanwei would not have felt anything. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had agreed, he felt a burst of pressure. If Bailey Hongzhuang had made such a decision because of him, then he would have let Bailey Hongzhuang down. Seeing the worry in Long Yanwei's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang naturally understood the former's thoughts. She was faintly touched in her heart. She never thought that Long Yanwei would actually be so considerate of them. Although they had never been well-liked in Penglai Palace, it was already a great blessing to be able to receive Long Yanwei's sincere treatment. Master Long, you don't have to worry about us. We are willing to do this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and said, although this prescription is precious, as a member of Penglai Palace, I will naturally not refuse if I can do something. Hearing this, Long Yanwei and Yizihua still did not understand. These words were dignified, but they did not conform to the inner feelings of ordinary people. Chapter 3678. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a bright and resplendent light. The reason why healing medicine is so precious is because everyone has a need for it. As a doctor, saving others is part of my duty. Besides, the Hallmaster's conditions are not unjust to me. In this way, I will have the Hallmaster as my backer in the future. Why not? Long Yanwei, who had been very puzzled, finally understood after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation. After hearing the reasons that the latter had listed out, he understood that the biggest reason why Bailey Hongzhuang had chosen to do this was because everyone wanted to protect the Shengxian continent. He could not help but feel shocked. It seems that he does not understand Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three well enough. He never thought that they would have such a selfless side to them. In this place, where almost everyone placed their own interests above all else, it was rare for Bailey Hongzhuang to make such a decision. The Hallmaster will be very happy when he hears this news. A smile appeared in Long Yanwei's eyes. Previously, the Hallmaster was worried that his appearance would pressure you all, so he left first. Your decision has really surprised us. As he spoke, Long Yanwei's eyes lit up and he continued, I've already asked for 4 fire fruits from the Hallmaster. Furthermore, the Hallmaster will also give you some rewards. Aside from that, if you need anything else, you can also ask the Hallmaster. You've made such a great contribution. I'm sure that the Hallmaster will not refuse. Hearing Long Yanwei's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen raised their eyebrows. However, when they saw Long Yanwei's treacherous look, they could not help but find it funny. It seems that the Hallmaster was not the only one who liked to rob Long Yanwei. Long Yanwei also liked to take advantage of the Hallmaster. Yanwei, you're not just protecting your disciples. If the Hallmaster sees you like this, he'll probably feel extremely helpless. Yizihua sighed. Previously, Long Yanwei had already placed great importance on Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had handed over the prescription, it was even more incredible. Even if the Hallmaster is here, he will agree. Long Yanwei chuckled. Earlier, Palace Master was lamenting that the Demon Training Tower had actually produced such a genius doctor. Now that our Penglai Palace has also produced a genius doctor, Palace Master doesn't have to envy the Demon Training Tower anymore. Yizihua nodded. That's true. For so long, only the Magic Training Tower's healing medicine had a certain effect on dark energy. I didn't think that Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine would have an even better effect. No one would be more depressed than the 100 Flowers Gate once the news got out. The 100 Flower Gate has always been known for its alchemy and medical skills. Who would have thought that it would be the Demon Training Tower first, and then our Penglai Palace? This is quite embarrassing for the 100 Flower Gate. Listening to the conversation between the two, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expressions suddenly became interesting. Thinking back, the 100 Flower Gate had tried their best to invite them to join. However, not only did they not join the 100 Flower Gate, they joined the Penglai Palace instead. If the 100 Flower Gate knew that the healing medicine this time was produced by Bailey Hongzhuang, they would probably be very depressed. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's strange expressions, Long Yanwei could not help but ask curiously, "What's wrong?" Why do the two of you have such expressions? Chapter 3679. Am I wrong? Long Yanwei asked doubtfully. Di Bei Chun chuckled, and his handsome face became even more dazzling. Even though Long Yuanwei and Easy Hua were men, they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. This kind of appearance was really monstrous. Master Long, the genius doctor of the demon training tower that you mentioned, is actually Hong Zhuang. Following Di Beichen's words, Long Yanwei couldn't help but be startled. For a moment, he couldn't react. Immediately after, his pupils dilated as he looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang in astonishment. The doctor of the demon training tower is you? Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded and said calmly, That's right, it's me. I remember now. Long Yanwei's eyes lit up. When I recruited you, you said that you wanted to return to the demon training tower. So that's how it is. At that time, we were preparing to return to the demon training tower to gain experience. However, after being recruited by you, we did not return to the demon training tower. In that case, didn't I accidentally recruit the genius doctor of the demon training tower? Steward Qin of the demon training tower must be so angry that he stomped his feet. Long Yanwei was astonished. He never thought that the cultivator that he had his eyes on was actually the genius doctor that everyone was talking about. That was a delicious cake that everyone was fighting to recruit. He actually didn't know that he had recruited him. If it was said that before, everyone felt that it was a waste for Long Yanwei to pay the price of 3 demon pet eggs to recruit them back. Presumably, now that everyone knew the real situation, they would no longer have such a feeling. On the contrary, everyone would feel that this deal was really worth it. We didn't go back, so we don't know what kind of mood Steward Qin is in. However, based on how much importance Steward Qin placed on Hong Zhuang, I'm afraid that is indeed the case. The corner of Di Beichen's mouth slightly raised. Bailey Hong Zhuang's position in the demon training tower was already very high, and Steward Qin wanted to use all kinds of resources to obtain the prescription from Bailey Hong Zhuang. Thinking about it, they had not returned after leaving this time, so Steward Qin must be very anxious in his heart. However, they didn't plan to stop going to the demon training tower in the future. After all, they still had to find a way to obtain the inheritance of the demon training tower. Right now, they were just trying their best to increase their cultivation and increase their chances of success. Wait! Izihua raised his right hand and walked to the center of Di Beichun and the others. There was still a trace of doubt in his eyes. I'm a little confused. You mean to say that the medicine from before was made by Bailey Hong Zhuang? That's right. Hong Zhuang is the genius doctor that you've been longing for, Long Yanwei said with a smile. It can't be. Even with Izihua's indifference at this moment, he could not help but open his mouth wide. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? It is indeed a coincidence. Izihua immediately gave Long Yanwei a thumbs up. I take back what I said before. Yanwei, your eyesight is simply superb. It's fine if you don't make a move, but the moment you make a move, you've directly recruited the genius doctor that the Hall Master has been longing for. I was wondering why you were able to make such a healing medicine. Now, I finally understand. Izihua sighed. Thinking about it, other than the people from the demon training tower, no one else knew that this genius doctor was actually so young. I can guarantee that when the Hall Master finds out about this news, he will definitely be overjoyed. Chapter 3680. Everything was just as Long Yanwei and Izihua had expected. When Bai Tsaming found out that Bailey Hong Zhuang was the doctor he had been sighing about, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then, when he found out that Bailey Hong Zhuang had actually agreed, he was even more overjoyed. Bailey Hong Zhuang really agreed? Bai Tsaming was still in disbelief. Although he had placed all his hopes on Long Yanwei, he still felt that it was unbelievable when he found out that Bailey Hong Zhuang had really agreed, because this was indeed not an easy matter to decide on. Long Yanwei nodded and took out an envelope from his bosom and handed it to Bai Tsaming. She has already left behind this prescription. Palace Master, Bailey Hong Zhuang has already done this. You have to think about it carefully. If you mistreat her, it would be too unreasonable. Bai Tsaming took the envelope in astonishment. After opening it and glancing through it, he couldn't help but nod. Indeed, Bailey Hongzhuang is so cooperative. I will definitely not mistreat her. Yanwei, I really didn't expect that you would have such good eyesight when recruiting a cultivator. I previously heard that the 100 Flowers Gate was trying their best to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang, but they didn't succeed. At that time, I was still wondering where this genius doctor had been recruited by. I didn't expect that she would actually come to our Penglai Palace. In that case, you have also made a great contribution. Palace Master, since you feel that I have also made a great contribution, shouldn't you return the demon pet eggs that you robbed from me? Long Yanwei raised his eyebrows. I paid such a huge price to recruit the genius doctor that you have been longing for. You have the nerve to rob the demon pet eggs from me? Hearing that, Bai Tsangming's expression froze for a moment. Then he smiled brightly. These demon pet eggs can't be taken back. I have even reserved their master. I should indeed thank you for this matter. However, with our many years of friendship, we are well aware of some things. If you need my help in the future, just tell me directly. Long Yanwei rolled his eyes when he saw Bai Tsangming's expression that seemed as if he intended to go back on his word. He'd known Bai Tsangming for so many years, and he was extremely familiar with Bai Tsangming's methods. Speaking of which, why did Bailey Hongzhuang refuse the 100 Flowers Gate's invitation? Izihua frowned. Previously, when I tried to recruit them, they didn't plan to pay attention to me at all. Even if I brought out the reputation of Penglai Island, they were still unmoved. It could be seen that they didn't have any thoughts about joining forces. It was only when I said that I wanted to give them demon pet eggs that they began to be moved. Come to think of it, if I didn't offer the condition of the demon pet egg, then it would definitely be impossible to recruit them back. Long Yanwei shrugged. Thinking back to when he was rejected, he felt very embarrassed. However, now that he knew that the 100 Flowers Gate was also rejected, he felt much better. In my opinion, this Bailey Hongzhuang most likely focused on cultivation instead of medical skills. It is precisely because of this that she refused the invitation of the 100 Flowers Gate. Otherwise, no doctor or alchemist would refuse. Think about it carefully. Bailey Hongzhuang has been in the Penglai Palace for quite some time. She has been training like other cultivators. If it wasn't for this prescription being taken out this time, many people might not even know her identity as a doctor. Chapter 3681. The Palace Master is right. Bailey Hongzhuang did not focus on cultivation. Izihua nodded, but his expression became interesting at the same time. If that's the case, Bailey Hongzhuang did not focus on medical skills at all, but she was still able to achieve this. Her talent in medical skills is too amazing. Bai Tsangming and the other two looked at each other. If they thought about it carefully, this was really terrifying. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun returned to their residence, they were greeted by Wen Ziren and Shangguan Yingying. Both of them looked curious. How was it? What did you say? Let's talk inside. Deep Beichun smiled faintly. So you've handed this prescription to the Palace Master? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That's right. We've already made this plan long ago. This way, it'll be much more convenient. Ziren thought for a moment, then nodded. You're right. 20% of the profit is already very high. With Penglai Palace's ability, once this healing medicine is sold to the outside world, the sales will definitely be huge. Although it's only 20%, the number you'll receive will definitely be very shocking. Indeed, the corners of Dibei Chin's lips raised slightly. From the perspective of Penglai Palace, this ratio is indeed very high. I think the Palace Lord should be giving us special preferential treatment because of Lord Long. At first, he was very surprised when he heard this condition. From the perspective of a force, it was usually impossible to offer such a high ratio. Master Long is indeed very good to us. He's been taking care of us since we came here. Shangguan Yingying's eyes shone with joy. Now that you've handed this prescription over, I think your status in Penglai Palace will be very different in the future. Even if we don't hand this prescription over, our status will already be different. You can see it from the attitude of the inner palace disciples. Ziren chuckled. We don't have any enemies in the outer palace now. Basically, No one will dare to cause trouble for us. Right? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly lit up, and then she took out 2 fiery red fruits from her bosom. This is what Master Long just gave us. What's this? Shangguan Yingying looked at the 2 bright red fruits, her face full of curiosity. The 2 fruits were fiery red in color, and there was a flowing luster flickering within them. At a glance, one could tell that they were filled with rich energy. Fire fruit. This is the fiery fruit? When Xiren was surprised. Supposedly, this fiery fruit is capable of tempering one's cultivation, and it's even capable of assisting a cultivator's cultivation to advance a step further. It's a treasure that practically all cultivators pursue, but it's extremely difficult to come by, and even the Cloudword sect doesn't possess such a treasure. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You have a good eye. Of course. Although I'm not as good at distinguishing medicinal herbs as you are, I know a lot about heaven and earth treasures. A trace of pride appeared between Xiren's brows. He had studied these treasures in the past. This is what Lord Long got from the Palace Lord for us. With this fiery fruit, our strength can be improved. Bei Chun said aloud. Chapter 3682. Master Long is indeed very good to you. This fiery fruit must be a very precious treasure in Penglai Palace. Ordinary cultivators would never be able to obtain it. Shangguan Yingying's tone was filled with envy, but her smile was very sincere. However, you have made such a great contribution this time. It is only right that you receive such a reward. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Indeed, with these fiery fruits, our cultivation can take another step forward. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang handed the fiery fruit to Shangguan Yingying. You must also take advantage of the medicinal power of this fiery fruit to break through to the 6th level of the Purple Realm. Looking at the 2 fiery fruits in her hands, Shangguan Yingying could not help but be stunned. Us? Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, as if it was the right thing to do. Master Long gave us a total of 4 fiery fruits. It is just enough for the 4 of us. Let's take advantage of this opportunity to break through to the 6th level of the Purple Realm. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying and Xiren could not help but look at each other in surprise. They had only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Bei Chun had fiery fruits. They did not expect that the 2 of them would also have fiery fruits. This healing medicine was developed by you. The 2 of us did not help you at all. How can we accept such an expensive thing? Xiren waved his hand. His attitude was very firm. Speaking of which, ever since they had arrived at Penglai Island, Bailey Hongzhuang and her husband had already helped them a lot. This fiery fruit was very precious. If they accepted it just like that, it would be too shameless. We are a team. Naturally, everyone should have a share of this. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. In her heart, the 4 of them were already a team. The improvement of the team was her improvement. Xiren is right. Shangguan Yingying also said, Hongzhuang, you've already helped us a lot. We can't accept this kind of thing anymore. Looking at Shangguan Yingying and Xiren's resolute faces, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Bei Chun. After all, Bei Chun and the other 2 had grown up together, so there was no need to worry so much. Hongzhuang has already put it this way. Why do you refuse? Bei Chun's expression was gentle. Don't we share blessings and misfortunes together? Don't tell me that you don't want to share the burden with us in the future. Bei Chun, you know that's not what we meant, Xiren said. Bei Chun's lips curved slightly. Since that's not what you meant, then there's no need to say anything more. Just accept it. Otherwise, it means that you're not willing to treat each other with sincerity. Xiren's lips froze. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't. He looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying, then nodded and said, All right, no more pleasantries. Everything depends on action. That's right. Bei Chun patted Xiren's shoulder. We've known each other for so many years. There's no need to be so formal. You should take advantage of this fire fruit's medicinal power to break through to the 6th level of the Purple Realm as soon as possible. Otherwise, it won't be easy for you to catch up to my cultivation. Xiren rolled his eyes. So what if I break through to the 6th level of the Purple Realm? You might break through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm directly. I won't be able to catch up to you then. Although you won't be able to catch up, it's still better than the gap widening. Deep Bachin chuckled. Chapter 3683. The four of them each took a fiery fruit and went into seclusion. Since they had obtained such a treasure, it was better to consume it as soon as possible. The tempering process after consuming the fiery fruit was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. It would take at least a few days because cultivators who had reached the Purple Realm had a lot of elemental energy stored in their bodies. Naturally, it would take a long time to purify all the impurities. For cultivators, the longer the tempering time, the better. This way, the tempering would be more thorough. Long Yanwei was not surprised when he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had gone into seclusion. However, the auction was still organized. It was an internal auction of Penglai Palace. There was only one item to be auctioned, healing medicine. Although there was only one item to be auctioned, the cultivators of Penglai Palace were still enthusiastic. They were even more enthusiastic than when they attended the auction on a normal day. Before Bailey Hongzhuang went into seclusion, she had already handed over the auction to Long Yanwei. She did not intend to participate. Long Yanwei also smiled and agreed. He would just wait for the auction to end and give the points to Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three came out of seclusion, the auction had already ended. It seems that all of us have done well. We have all successfully reached the 6th level of the Purple Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying in front of her. She could feel that everyone's aura had strengthened. Shangguan Yingying's face was filled with a joyful smile. Yes, we were still some distance away from breaking through the 6th level of the Purple Realm. Now, with the help of the fiery fruit, we have directly broken through. Not only that, the elemental energy in our bodies seems to have become stronger after the tempering. This fiery fruit is indeed a treasure. Indeed, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The purer the elemental energy, the more stable our foundation will be. It will be helpful for our future advancement. Bei-chun, have you broken through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm? Xiren's gaze fell on Di Bei-chun. At this moment, Di Bei-chun's aura was completely restrained, so he could not determine. Hearing this, Di Bei-chun smiled and nodded. Seeing this, Xiren couldn't help but cover his face with one hand and said helplessly, "It seems that it's not easy for me to catch up to you." After consuming the fire fruit, he had successfully broken through to the 6th level of the Purple Realm, but there was still a long way to go before he could break through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm. Di Bei-chun had now successfully broken through to the 7th level of the Purple Realm. Although it was only a single level of difference, the difference in elemental energy was significant. The future is long. Perhaps there will be a chance in the future. Di Bei-chun raised his eyebrows. Although he was comforting Xiren, he did not believe that Xiren would have such an opportunity. By the way, Hongzhuang. Shangguan Yingying walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and said, "We have been in seclusion for a few days. I think the auction should be over by now." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "It was held 3 days ago. It has already ended. We will know when we go to Master Long's place later." The rules of the auction had already been set. Cultivators would exchange points for points. It didn't matter whether she was there or not, so there was no need to waste any time. "I think there must be a lot of points this time." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "After we get these points, I plan to take a look at the resource room and see if I can find some suitable cultivation resources." Chapter 3684. Hearing Shangguan Yingying's words of concern, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a lotus-like smile. "Yingying, I understand. I just want to see if there are any treasures that can improve my mental strength. Now that my cultivation is improving at a good speed, the improvement of my mental strength is slightly slow. So, I want to find treasures in this area to improve." She usually did not spend much time on alchemy, but her alchemy skills have been steadily improving. That was because her mental strength was much stronger than cultivators of the same cultivation. However, during this period of time, the improvement of her mental strength had been slower than her cultivation. If this continued, it would not be a good sign. So, she thought of this method. Compared to treasures that could improve cultivation, treasures that could improve mental strength were much rarer. However, Penglai Palace was a top force. She felt that there might be some. I see. Shangguan Ying suddenly understood. Although this kind of treasure is hard to find, with Penglai Palace's foundation, they should still have some. I don't know. We'll know when we see it tomorrow. Then I'll go with you. Okay. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun went to Long Yanwei's palace. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ying's figures, Long Yanwei's eyes suddenly filled with a smile. You guys have been in seclusion for a longer time than I thought. It seems that the harvest is not bad. This is all thanks to Sir's help. Otherwise, it would have taken us a long time to improve. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands. Long Yanwei smiled and waved his hand. Although I helped, it was mainly because of your own ability. If it were not for you guys concocting this healing medicine, I would not have been able to get this fiery fruit from the palace master. No matter what, we will remember Sir Long's care in our hearts. We dare not forget. Di Beichun's deep eyes flashed with sincerity. On Penglai Island, he was only grateful to two people. One was Di Yujue, who saved him, and the other was Long Yanwei. The effect of this auction is very good. The number of points obtained from the auction is not small. I have already instructed someone to transfer these points to your points card. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. There are many treasures in the Penglai Palace's resource room. You can use these points to exchange for what you need. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She didn't think that Long Yanwei had directly transferred the points to her point plate. After coming out of seclusion, she didn't even notice the changes on her point plate. Now that she glanced at it, her pupils couldn't help but dilate a little, and the astonishment on her face became even more obvious. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's astonished expression, Long Yanwei couldn't help but laugh. Isn't this number more than you think? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Indeed, it's much more than I expected. You still underestimated the importance of this healing medicine in the hearts of the Inner Palace disciples. If you had also participated in this auction, you would have understood everyone's eagerness. Long Yanwei smiled faintly. This prescription is too important to everyone in Penglai Palace. Therefore, the Palace Master has decided to directly grant you the status of Inner Palace disciples. Following Long Yanwei's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were both stunned. Become Inner Palace disciples? Chapter 3685. Cultivators who have made outstanding contributions to the Penglai Palace can be directly promoted to Inner Palace disciples. Originally, only you, Bailey Hongzhuang, had this qualification. However, this healing medicine is too important for Inner Palace cultivators. In addition, we considered that you are a team and it would not be appropriate to separate you. In addition, the four of you are not weak. Therefore, we have decided to let you all become Inner Palace disciples together. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun could not help but look at each other. Originally, they wanted to participate in the Inner Palace disciple assessment. They did not expect that they would be able to become Inner Palace disciples without the assessment. However, becoming Inner Palace disciples is not only a motivation for you, but also a pressure. The Inner Palace disciples are usually much stronger than the Outer Palace disciples. Since you are joining as an exception, it is inevitable that you will attract some attention. According to my judgment, the Inner Palace disciples know that the healing medicine was developed by you and will not target you. Therefore, there is no need to worry too much. After all, from another perspective, you are their saviors. We understand. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun nodded. Thank you, Palace Master and Master Long. The Palace Master has been in a good mood recently. He originally planned to tell you the rewards personally. However, after knowing that you were in seclusion, he did not disturb you and directly handed the rewards to me. As he spoke, Long Yanwei took out a Chinquan bag and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. This is the reward the palace master gave you. There must be a lot of treasures inside. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. She did not expect the palace master to give her other rewards. Presumably, the rewards given by the palace master would not be bad. From today onwards, you're inner palace disciples. Later, pack your things, and you can live in the inner palace. As for the training grounds, due to your current cultivation bases, you can decide where you want to train. Usually, the cultivation of inner palace disciples has reached Purple Realm 7th level and above. With your current cultivation, there is still a gap. It is more dangerous to enter the training ground of the inner palace. I think there is no need to rush in for the time being. Thank you for your concern, Master Long. We understand. I believe that you all know what to do. In any case, consider it yourselves. Long Yanwei smiled faintly. If there are no problems, you can go back and rest. At this moment, Di Beichen suddenly said, Master Long, we plan to leave Penglai Palace for a while. Leave Penglai Palace? Long Yanwei frowned in confusion. Where are you going? Back then, when we went to the Demon Training Tower, we had wanted to try and see if we could obtain the Demon Training Tower's legacy. However, back then, our cultivation bases were not high enough. Now that our cultivation bases have increased, it just so happens that we cannot go to the training grounds of the Inner Palace for the time being. Thus, we plan on going to the Demon Training Tower. Di Beichun had a serious expression. They had never given up on the inheritance of the Devil Training Pagoda. Now that they had some free time, it was also extremely suitable for them to go to the Devil Training Tower to explore. If they could obtain the inheritance of the Devil Training Pagoda, then they would have some additional means when they came to this training ground. Chapter 3686. I see. Long Yanwei came to a realization. Penglai Palace doesn't stop cultivators from going out. Usually, many cultivators want to go to the Demon Training Tower. You guys can go, but be careful. Yes. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Ying returned to their residence, they mentioned their plan to Xiren and Wen Xiren. Wen Xiren immediately agreed. We really should go back to the Demon Training Tower. Although we don't know if we can get the inheritance, we have to try. Shangwan Ying nodded. We are now cultivators of the 6th level of the Purple Realm. We don't have to worry about others discovering our cultivation and not daring to reveal our identities. Think about how sullen we were before. This time we can go back openly. Looking at Wen Xiren and Shangwan Ying's excited faces, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was as bright as a flower. Then this time, we will go back as Penglai Palace's Inner Palace disciples. Now, they were no longer the rookies they were when they first came to Penglai Island. They needed to be careful everywhere. Moreover, with the identity of Penglai Palace's disciples, they were no longer the same as before. When do we leave? Shangwan Ying was in high spirits. She could not wait to return to Penglai Palace. We have to pack up now and then go to the Inner Palace to find a new residence. Di Beichun said slowly. Also, Hong Zhuang needs to go to the resource hall to find the treasures she needs. We will leave in 2 days. Hearing this, Xiren nodded. Okay. The four of them quickly packed up and followed the cultivator who came to guide them to the Inner Palace. As the four of them walked all the way to the Inner Palace, they suddenly realized that the Inner Palace was at the back of Penglai Palace. It was different from the Outer Palace disciples. This was the real center. Not only was the location different, but even the buildings were slightly different. They were more reserved and noble. Judging from the buildings, the number of Inner Palace disciples is indeed much less than the Outer Palace disciples. When Xiren looked around, however, the Inner Palace disciples are indeed stronger. I haven't seen anyone with a weaker aura than me. Di Beichun's expression was calm and reserved. He lowered his voice and said, The Inner Palace Disciple Assessment requires cultivators of the 7th level of the Purple Realm and above. It's natural that you haven't seen any cultivators with a weaker aura than you. So, you need to be more careful in the future. If you're surrounded by Inner Palace's cultivators, it will not be the same as when you were in the Outer Palace. 7th level of the 7th level of the Purple Realm? I, I, two, two, two. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed and patted Wenziren's shoulder. There's always a mountain higher than the other. Just get used to it. The inner palace cultivators looked at them curiously. Isn't that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three? Why are they in the inner palace? Haven't you heard? Bailey Hongzhuang gave the prescription of the healing medicine to the palace master and made a great contribution. Therefore, the palace master made an exception and accepted them as inner palace disciples. Chapter 3687. Although they haven't been in the Penglai Palace for long, their presence is stronger than those of us who have been in the inner palace for several years. Who in the entire Penglai Palace doesn't know their names? What you said is true. I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills to be so experienced. With that healing medicine, our safety will be greatly improved. I can understand the palace master's approach. 100 Flowers Gate hasn't been able to develop it until now, but our Penglai Island has. Isn't this the pride of our Penglai Island? That's true, but the person who developed this healing medicine is Bailey Hongzhuang. The people behind her are completely basking in her glory. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were a walking topic. No matter where they went, it was inevitable that they would be talked about. It's just that when everyone was talking about it, Wenziren's face couldn't help but be a little ugly. Speaking of which, his achievements in Penglai Palace were indeed inseparable from Bailey Hongzhuang. For this, his heart was already very guilty. At this moment, when everyone mentioned it in front of him, his mood was naturally very complicated. Di Baichen noticed the change in Ziren's mood and hugged Ziren with his big hand. These people are all envious and jealous. If you care about it because of this, then it's not fair. Yeah, aren't they envious that we have a friend like Hongzhuang? Shangguan Yingying chuckled. I'm very calm. What's the big deal? They're all envious. When Ziren, who was originally a little depressed, couldn't help but laugh after hearing what Shangguan Yingying said. You guys are too shameless to comfort yourselves like this. Shameless is the only way to have a bright future, Xiaohei said with a smile. Under the guidance of the person who came, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three people came to their living area. As soon as they walked into the house, they found that the room was obviously more spacious and bright than the residence in the outer palace. Even the decorations inside were more meticulous. It was obviously not on the same level. The treatment of inner palace disciples is indeed different. Just the living area alone is much more luxurious. Shangguan Yingying walked to the side and sat down. With their encounters in the Penglai Palace, the living environment was constantly improving. This place is indeed more comfortable to live in, and the concentration of primary energy here seems to have increased. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Ziren looked at the environment in front of him and said, although the living area is good, most of the time we are busy training. The time we live here is really too short. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two looked at each other and then sighed. This is true. I think the other disciples in the inner hall are the same as us. Hongzhuang, shall we go to the resource room to take a look later? Shangguan Yingying suggested. I also want to see what kind of rich cultivation resources the Penglai Palace's resource room has. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay. Ziren, are you guys going? We won't be going. Ziren waved his hand. We are inner palace disciples now. Baichun and I will go find Senior Run and the others. After all, we plan to leave in 2 days. We probably won't be back for a while. Chapter 3688. After making their decision, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three walked out of the house together and prepared to head to their respective residences. However, not long after they walked out of the house, they suddenly saw an unexpected figure. Ao Ling Xiao. Ziren looked at the figure in front of him in surprise. Why are you here? Compared to Ziren's surprise, Ao Ling Xiao was very calm. When Ziren, we meet again. I've also become an inner palace disciple. We can often meet again in the future. Listening to Ao Ling Xiao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's faces were filled with astonishment. When did you become an Inner Palace disciple? It doesn't seem like it's the time for the Inner Palace disciple assessment. With A.O. Lingxiao's strength, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not doubt that he had the strength to become an Inner Palace disciple. They could tell that A.O. Lingxiao was very strong from their previous experience together. However, it was not the time for the Inner Palace disciple assessment. Even if he had such strength, he had to pass the assessment first. A.O. Lingxiao raised his eyebrows. I've passed the Inner Palace disciple assessment long ago. It's just that I've never been interested in entering the Inner Palace, so I stayed in the Outer Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were stunned again when they heard that. However, they understood in their hearts. From beginning to end, A.O. Lingxiao was not interested in the Inner Hall. The reason why he appeared here was nothing more than his interest in Di Beichun. It seemed that A.O. Lingxiao wanted to be a follower to the end. Although you've become an Inner Palace disciple now, we can't train together for the time being. Di Beichun smiled faintly. We still have some things to do, so we'll be leaving first. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two followed behind Di Beichun and left together. A.O. Lingxiao was puzzled by Di Beichun's words, but he did not ask. Now, I feel that this A.O. Lingxiao is becoming more and more strange. Every Outer Palace disciple yearns to become an Inner Palace disciple. Moreover, he has clearly passed the test, yet he still insists on staying in the Outer Palace. Using normal logic to explain this is truly inexplicable. Shangguan Yingying shook her head and frowned. She really couldn't see through this inexplicable guy. Maybe people with ability have such a bad taste. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands, but her expression was very calm. In her previous life, she also knew a lot of people with weird personalities. Perhaps they felt that life wasn't interesting enough, so they added some color to it. Now that you mention it, it's even stranger. Since he's not interested in what everyone else is interested in, why is he so interested in Beichun? Shangguan Yingying's eyes fell on Di Beichun. After pondering for a moment, she suddenly widened her eyes. Could it be that A.O. Lingxiao is gay? PFFF. After hearing this, Xiren, who was walking, couldn't control his emotions. Then he choked on his own saliva. Cough, cough, cough. Ying, aren't your thoughts a bit too exaggerated? However, Shangguan Ying said in a serious tone, I think my thoughts are very reasonable. You see, with Beichun's appearance, normal people would be mesmerized. If this A.O. Lingxiao is gay, then isn't it normal for him to fancy Beichun? Chapter 3689. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was a bit strange. She couldn't help but look at Di Beichun beside her. Just as Shangguan Yingying had said, Di Beichun's appearance was enough to charm anyone. Even a woman wouldn't be able to have such a good-looking face, yet it was on a man's face. Thinking back to the first time she saw Di Beichun, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be stunned. Even after seeing it so many times, she still felt that it was a face that could enchant people. Xiren originally wanted to refute Shangguan Yingying, but after hearing the latter's impeccable reasoning, he didn't know how to refute. What Yingying said seems to make some sense. Xiren looked at Di Beichun doubtfully. Feeling Xiren's curious gaze, Di Beichun's face suddenly became gloomy. He had lived for so long, and it was normal for women to take a fancy to him. However, this was the first time a man had taken a fancy to him. Why are you looking at me like that? His low voice carried a bit of threat and warning. Xiren touched his head and smiled brightly. Hee, I naturally know that you don't have such thoughts. Di Beichun's face darkened. Shangguan Yingying walked to Di Beichun's side and said, Beichun, I'm telling the truth. Although there are only a few people in the Shengxian continent who have such fetishes, they really do exist. You haven't encountered it before, but it doesn't mean that you won't encounter it now. In fact, with your face, it's very normal for you to encounter such a situation. Di Beichun's face darkened even more. You see, that A.O. Lingxiao has always been alone. He's not interested in anyone. Hongzhuang is a first-class beauty, right? But he didn't pay much attention to Hongzhuang at all. He He made it clear from the beginning that he was paying attention to you. Shangguan Yingying patted her forehead. I finally understand. What do you understand? Di Beichen gritted his teeth and asked, didn't A.O. Lingxiao say that he wasn't sure about one thing? If he's sure, he'll tell us. It seems like it's his first time liking a man, so he's suffering in his heart. But he can't bear to give up on you. So he's been following you and thinking about whether he really likes men. Shangguan Yingying could not hide the excitement on her face. She looked as if she had discovered a new continent. She looked at Wen Ziren and Bailey Hongzhuang excitedly and said, do you think my analysis makes sense? Pucci. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. She didn't know how Shangguan Yingying's imagination went wild. She actually thought of such a possibility. At this time, Di Beichen said in a deep voice, Ziren, I think you need to take care of Yingying. What is she researching all day long? Be careful when she finds a man to pair you up with. After all, your face is also a feast for the eyes. Wen Ziran, who was originally snickering, heard Di Beichen's words and couldn't help but stare blankly, suddenly unable to continue laughing. In the next second, Di Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked forward. It seems that I have to keep my wife away from Yingying. Otherwise, it's not worth it if she's led astray. Shangguan Yingying looked at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's back in astonishment. She quickly said, hey, wait for us. However, Ziren pulled Shangguan Yingying's hand and said, Yingying, tell me, where did you learn this from? Chapter 3690. Bailey Hongzhuang walked beside Di Beichen. Looking at his stiff and awkward face, she couldn't hide the smile on her lips. Wife, do you think it's funny? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and nodded. Haha, it's funny. I think Yingying's words make sense. Wife, you've been led astray by Yingying. Beichen, what if it's really as Yingying guessed? What will you do? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen with a smile. She rarely saw Di Beichen so embarrassed. It was really interesting. Thinking about it, if all of this was true, she really didn't know what Di Beichen would do. I'll kill him, Di Beichen said lightly. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Haha, I hope A.O. Lingxiao doesn't really have such thoughts. On the other side, achoo, achoo. A.O. Lingxiao sneezed a few times in a row. He rubbed his nose, and his face was full of doubts. Is there someone talking about me today? Why do I keep sneezing? It's really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying came to the resource room together. The Penglai Palace's resource room could be called the resource hall. The scope was undoubtedly much larger than they had imagined. Penglai Palace's foundation is really extraordinary. Just by looking at this resource hall, you can tell that there must be a lot of treasures inside. Shangguan Yingying's face was full of emotion. She had long felt that this place was definitely not simple. Now it seemed that she was right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I hope there are treasures here that I need. I think there should be. Shangguan Yingying smiled faintly. This place is so big. The number of treasures inside seems to be quite a lot. Although the treasures that you need to improve your spiritual power are not many, with the foundation of Penglai Palace, they should still exist. Hearing this, the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips widened a little. I hope it's really as you expect. To Bailey Hongzhuang, spiritual power was undoubtedly extremely important. Whether it was alchemy, inscription, or other skills, they were all inseparable from one's spiritual force. The reason why she was able to master these skills was because of her outstanding spiritual force. It was precisely because her mental strength was very strong that she was able to achieve twice the result with half the effort when learning these things. Otherwise, even if her talent was very good, it would be very difficult for her to reach this step. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen arrived at the resource room, they discovered that it was also a very lively place. At this moment, there were many cultivators inside, choosing the cultivation resources they needed. The layout of the resource room was very simple. Rows of shelves were placed with different levels of treasures. The bottom of each treasure was marked with its name, function, and points needed to exchange for it. The closer to the back of the counter, the higher the value of the treasure. Similarly, the more points needed to exchange for it. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at it and directly gave up on the several counters in front of her. Resources that could improve one's spiritual power were more difficult to find than resources that could directly improve one's cultivation. She did not need to look at the low-level resources at all. If such a treasure really existed in the resource hall, then the points needed to exchange for it would not be small. Chapter 3691. Listening to Shangguan Yingying's words, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced around and nodded. Okay, if you find it, call me. No problem. If you see any resources you like, you can also tell me. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and blinked, giggling. Okay. Shangguan Yingying nodded. I actually don't need anything now. The most important thing is to help you find treasures that can help improve your spiritual power. After the two separated, Bailey Hongzhuang shuttled through these counters. There were indeed many treasures here. Every one of them was something that cultivators would be envious of. Many things that were rarely seen or appeared in auctions could be seen here. This also made Bailey Hongzhuang understand how deep the heritage of Penglai Palace was. Many of the things here are difficult to find even in auctions on ordinary days. I didn't expect that you can exchange them with points here. It seems that this Penglai Palace has included many precious treasures. Xiaobai looked at the many treasures in front of her and couldn't help but sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Indeed, Penglai Palace can have such a status. It is precisely because there are resources that other places can't have that it can attract so many cultivators. This was the attraction of a big force. Perhaps the treasures that couldn't be found in other places could be easily obtained here. There are so many treasures here. If we can take some away, we will be rich. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed brightly, her hands constantly rubbing. Her excited look was like she was having a beautiful dream. She was almost drooling. Looking at Xiao Hei's eager look, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly said, Xiao Hei, don't have any ideas about these treasures. This place looks very ordinary, but there are definitely many strong cultivators. As long as someone dares to have any thoughts of robbing, they will definitely be subdued in the first place. As early as when she walked in, Bailey Hongzhuang had already felt several auras here. These were definitely the auras of strong cultivators. At the very least, with her current cultivation, she was no match for him, so it was better for her to stay put. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Hei could not help but droop her head. Sigh. There's so many treasures that I can only look at. What a waste. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Penglai Palace must have spent a lot of effort to get so many treasures. It would be strange if you could take them away so easily. All right. Xiao Hei pursed her lips. Master, speaking of which, there are very few treasures that can increase one's mental strength. We've seen all sorts of treasures along the way, but we haven't seen any that can increase mental strength. Such treasures are rare to begin with. Let's be patient. If we really don't have any, we can think of something after we go to the Demon Training Tower. Although the Demon Training Tower was different from the Penglai Palace, there were also many treasures there. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Hei, and Xiao Bai were searching and talking, Shangguan Yingying's voice suddenly came from not far away. Chapter 3692. If I say it's mine, then it's mine. Chu Yinyao glanced at Shangguan Yingying indifferently. After noticing Shangguan Yingying's clothes, the disdain in her eyes grew stronger. You're just an outer palace disciple. How dare you snatch something from me? Don't you want to stay in Penglai Palace? What a big tone. Shangguan Yingying frowned coldly. Although I haven't been in Penglai Palace for a long time, it's rare to see someone as unreasonable as you. Oh, Chu Yinyao's lips curled up a little. So you're new. No wonder you're so daring. Since you're new, I'll kindly advise you that you'd better not snatch things from inner palace disciples in Penglai Palace. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. Chu Yinyao patted Shangguan Yingying's chest, her eyes full of ridicule. Be good and let go of your hand. Even if you really want this thing, I'm afraid you don't have enough points to exchange for it. Don't look down on me. Shangguan Yingying glared. I'm also an Inner Palace disciple. Who said I don't have points to exchange for it? I got this thing first. Even you Inner Palace disciples don't have the right to snatch it. Chu Yinyao was slightly stunned. She looked at Shangguan Yingying's appearance and couldn't help laughing. Ha ha! You said you're an Inner Palace disciple? You didn't just come today, did you? Don't you know that the clothes of Inner Palace disciples and Outer Palace disciples look the same, but in fact they're different? With your appearance, it's ridiculous to pretend to be an Inner Palace disciple. Shangguan Yingying looked down at her clothes and felt a little helpless. She had just been promoted to Inner Palace disciple today, so she didn't immediately change into Inner Palace disciple's clothes. Who would have thought that she would encounter such trouble? Cut the crap. In short, I've taken a fancy to this thing. I won't give it to you. Don't even think about it. With that, Shangguan Yingying grabbed the thing with both hands. From her serious expression, one could tell that she would definitely not hand it over. She had been looking for a long time, but hadn't seen a treasure that could improve mental strength. She thought it was gone. She didn't expect to see it on the counter behind her. Naturally, she was extremely happy. Since she came to Penglai Palace, she always felt guilty to Bailey Hongzhuang because she couldn't help her. Anyway, she was very happy to find this treasure. At least it was something that could help Hong. However, just when she took in her hand, a woman grabbed her hands handed over. She had never seen such an unreasonable person. If you hand the item over to me now, I can let bygones be bygones. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for not warning you. A hint of impatience flashed in Chu Yinyao's eyes. With her reputation in the inner hall, how many people dared to snatch things from her? What can you do if I don't give it to you? Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yinyao coldly. She didn't want to cause any more trouble. After all, they had just entered the Inner Palace, and the Inner Palace disciples were strong. It was not good to cause trouble. Chapter 3693. If you don't hand it over, Chu Yinyao's eyes suddenly became cold. In this Penglai Palace, it's normal for Inner Palace disciples to kill a few Outer Palace disciples. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived and heard this remark, her slender willow leaf eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. In her sight, she saw a woman wearing a red gauze dress, outlining her graceful figure. Her long black hair was elegant and moving, and even the hairband was dazzling red. Ostentatious, dancing, proud, disdainful. At first sight, Chu Yinyao gave Bailey Hongzhuang such a feeling. At this moment, Chu Yinyao was looking down at Shangguan Yingying as if the latter was an ant that could be pinched to death with a light pinch. Yingying, what happened? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Shangguan Yingying, and her eyes suddenly fell on the lavender fruit in her hand. Yinling fruit. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately recognized the origin of this fruit. Among the many heaven and earth treasures, there were not many that were useful for mental strength, and this Yinling fruit belonged to one of the more outstanding ones. It was just that this Yinling fruit was rarely seen, even in auctions, so Bailey Hongzhuang did not have much hope. She did not expect that there would be a Yinling fruit here, but after seeing the Yinling fruit and then looking at Shangguan Yingying and Chu Yinyao, she had already roughly understood what had happened. When Chu Yinyao saw Bailey Hongzhuang for the first time, her expression froze for a moment. Her pupils could not help but dilate a little, and a strong shock flashed in her heart. Beautiful, exquisite, otherworldly beauty. In a short moment, many words flashed in Chu Yinyao's mind. She had never seen such a beautiful woman. Even as a woman, she had to admit that this was a face that could turn all living things upside down. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, it would have been hard for her to believe that there would be such a wonderful person in this world. All along, she had boasted that her appearance was outstanding, and her sister Chu Yunshang was the most beautiful person in her heart. But she never thought that today, her firm belief would actually waver for a moment. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang coming, Shangguan Yingying frowned and whispered, "Hongzhuang, I got the Yinling fruit first, but she insisted that I give it to her. I didn't want to, so she wanted to take it by force. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed a little, but her expression was very calm. She had vaguely heard the conversation between Shangguan Yingying and Shangguan Yingying, so she understood. I am Chu Yunyao of the Inner Palace. This Yunling fruit is exactly what I need. Chu Yunyao still raised her chin, and there was no modesty in her words. So what if the woman in front of her was very outstanding? Whatever she took a fancy to was hers. This was because she had already noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang was also wearing the uniform of an Outer Palace disciple. As long as it was an Outer Palace disciple, she would not pay attention to it at all. If you give this Yunling fruit to me, I can give you some benefits. If you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for being rude. Chapter 3694. Master, this woman is really arrogant. It's disgusting. Xiao He lazily looked at Chu Yunyao in front of her. Although they had not stayed in Penglai Palace for a long time, most people were not so annoying. It's really an eye-opener for her to be so righteous when she snatches people's things. Xiaobai was also speechless for a while. I think this woman's disgust is comparable to that of Duan Huali. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Chu Yunyao indifferently and said, "We have no interest in your so-called benefits. We'll take our leave first. Goodbye." As soon as her voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang took Shangguan Yingying's hand and prepared to leave. From the first time she saw this woman, she felt that this woman must be the type who would easily cause trouble. She really had no interest in being entangled with her. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not give her face, Chu Yinyao's face suddenly turned cold, and her eyes were covered with a layer of haze. "Did I say you can go?" The threatening voice was cold, and Chu Yinyao's gaze was like a sharp blade shooting straight at the backs of Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying. With her reputation, the outer hall disciples had always been eager to please her. At this moment, she had already introduced herself, and the other party still dared to not give her face, which naturally aroused the anger in her heart. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not pay attention to Chu Yinyao's words at all and continued to move forward without stopping. In her opinion, Chu Yinyao was completely used to throwing tantrums and actually thought that everyone should revolve around her. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang completely ignored her threat, Chu Yinyao's face became more and more unsightly. This person dared to embarrass her like this. Damn it! Chu Yinyao secretly spat. Her figure moved and quickly blocked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying. Do you think that you can successfully take the thing away after walking out of this resource hall? Once we leave the resource hall, the spiritual cloud fruit is ours. What's wrong with taking it away? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold, and her words were as cold as ice. Chu Yunyao chuckled. You have to see clearly that the points required for this cloud spirit fruit are not enough for you as Outer Hall disciples. You don't have to worry about that. Just because you don't have enough doesn't mean that we don't have enough. Bailey Hongzhuang lifted her delicate chin, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a cold light. Although she did not like to look for trouble, this spiritual cloud fruit was exactly what she needed. There was no way she would give it away. You, Chu Yunyao glared at them. If you dare to go out, I guarantee that you won't see the sun tomorrow. At this moment, Chu Yinyao's eyes also became ruthless. It was just an outer hall disciple who dared to be so arrogant in front of her. She was really angry. It seemed that she would have to teach these two newbies a lesson for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. What big words! The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips suddenly rose, and her smile was bright and mocking. I'm afraid it's not that easy to take my life. Since senior sister wants to try, then I'll wait for you. As soon as these words came out, Chu Yunyao could not help but be stunned. The incredulity in her eyes grew stronger. She had never thought that this woman would be so unyielding and ignore her threat. Chapter 3695. Just as the conflict between the two sides was getting more and more intense, a voice suddenly rang out. Chu Yinyao, why don't you give me some face and let this matter drop? With this voice, both Chu Yinyao and Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. However, when they saw the person who had come, their expressions were somewhat complicated. Duan Huali? Chu Yinyao looked at the strong and tall figure in front of her in surprise, as if she didn't expect to see him here. Duan Huali slowly walked over with his hands behind his back. His handsome face was filled with a graceful smile. Chu Yinyao, you're a senior sister after all. It's unbecoming of you to be like this. They're my friends. Why don't you give me some face and let this matter drop? It's Duan Huali. I didn't expect to meet him here. A cold light flashed in Shangguan Yingying's eyes. She remembered clearly that Duan Huali had sent people to the training ground of the outer hall to attack them. She didn't expect that he would come to help them now. It was really funny. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She didn't expect to meet him so coincidentally. Ever since she handed over the prescription of the healing medicine, she hadn't seen Duan Huali. She only thought that Duan Huali knew that their identities were different from before and didn't dare to cause trouble for them anymore. This was also what she was happy to see. However, she didn't expect to meet him today. Although Duan Huali was speaking for them at the moment, it also told her that Duan Huali hadn't given up yet. If he had given up, Duan Huali would definitely not have come to cause trouble at this time. Since we came back, we haven't seen Xue Changdong. In my opinion, Xue Changdong most likely died at the hands of Duan Huali. Shangguan Yingying lowered her voice and said, does this guy think that we don't know anything, so he wants to be the good guy? They had inquired about Xue Changdong as soon as they returned. After all, this guy had almost put Di Beichun and the others in danger. It would be out of character if they did not teach him a lesson. However, they did not expect that they would not get any information about Xue Changdong even after asking so many people. It was as if Xue Changdong had completely disappeared after returning. However, they still heard from a cultivator that Xue Changdong had been to the inner hall. In this way, it was easy to determine the next piece of news. Killing people to silence them was really in line with Duan Huali's style. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and said, maybe Xue Changdong didn't reveal any information before. Maybe he thought that we didn't know anything. If that's the case, then this Duan Huali is really funny. Shangguan Yingying sneered in her heart. I like to see what this Duan Huali is going to do. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. In her heart, she had already labeled Duan Huali as a dead man. It was just that she could not take his life for the time being. However, the final result was certain. Di Beichun was the person she cherished the most. This guy wanted to do something to the person she cherished the most. She would not forgive him. Chu Yinyao looked at Duan Huali indifferently and suddenly smiled. Duan Huali, I have never seen you have any hobby of helping others. Could it be that you have taken a fancy to this new female disciple this time? Chapter 3696. Chu Yinyao chuckled. I've known you for so many years. Don't tell me I don't even know your temperament. You've always been unable to take your eyes off beautiful women. This woman's appearance is so outstanding. It would be strange if you could let her go. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed that their expectations were really right. It was because of Bailey Hongzhuang that Duan Huali attacked Di Beichun and Wenziren. However, Shangguan Yingying didn't understand. Why didn't Duan Huali kill her as well? Did he think that she was not a threat because she was a woman? Duan Huali frowned slightly. Chu Yinyao, why are you saying these irrelevant things? Looking at Duan Huali's very nervous appearance, afraid that she would say something she shouldn't say, Chu Yinyao's eyes became gloomier. She had known Duan Huali for many years, so she naturally understood Duan Huali's temperament. Even if he always had a lot of women around him, he never minded. But what was going on now? She had never seen Duan Huali like this. Thinking of this, Chu Yinyao couldn't help but glance at Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing the latter's indifferent and casual appearance, Her heart gradually sank. Could it be that Duan Huali was serious this time? Did he really like this woman? At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed Chu Yunyao's constantly changing face. For some reason, she felt that there seemed to be a lot of stories in Chu Yunyao's expression. Anyone could see the reason why Duan Huali suddenly stood up and spoke at this moment, but Chu Yunyao looked like she had lost her soul, which was a little strange. The next second, Chu Yunyao's expression returned to normal. She said, "Duan Huali, if this Yunling fruit is what I want, I will do you a favor. But this Yunling fruit is what my sister wants, so I can't do you a favor." Duan Huali couldn't help but frown when he heard this. "You did it on purpose?" Chu Yunyao's face turned cold. "Duan Huali, I have no intention of playing with you. Weren't you interested in my sister before? You caused such a huge commotion back then. Don't tell me that you're going to snatch my sister's things for the sake of 2 Outer Palace disciples." Duan Huali's expression froze when he heard Chu Yunyao mention the word sister. At this moment, seeing Chu Yunyao's words, his expression couldn't help but become even uglier. "Nothing happened between me and your sister. Even if we talk about it, it's just a matter of the past. What's the point of mentioning it now?" "Ha!" Chu Yunyao sneered. "Yes, how could I forget that you have always been fickle? All women are just your temporary interest." "Master, why do I feel that the atmosphere between Chu Yunyao and Duan Huali is a little unusual?" Xiao Hei rubbed her chin, her face full of gossipy expressions. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "Indeed, there should be a story between the two of them. Otherwise, it shouldn't be like this." She clearly noticed that the smile on Chu Yunyao's lips was self-deprecating, which was very strange. According to the content of their conversation, there should be something between Chu Yunyao's sister and Duan Huali, but why did Chu Yunyao laugh at herself? Chapter 3697. Chu Yunyao, I just want to ask you if you're willing to do me a favor. Why are you talking about all this nonsense? Duan Huali frowned. If he had not been forced to, he would not have wanted to meet Chu Yunyao at all. This woman was completely troublesome. Since he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had concocted such a healing medicine, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was different from the rest. This woman was not only beautiful, but also strong and talented. As an inner disciple, he knew too well that this healing medicine had solved the problem that had troubled everyone for many years. Bailey Hongzhuang could do it so easily, which proved that her medical skills were really terrible. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang refused him so decisively and did not give him any leeway, which also proved that Bailey Hongzhuang was loyal. If such a woman could become his woman, she would definitely not betray him. In the past, he had never taken the women around him seriously. On the one hand, it was because these women fell into his hands too easily. He was not a stupid person. Naturally, he could see that everyone was just doing it for their own interests. However, for the first time, Bailey Hongzhuang made him feel so different, so he was willing to spend more time and energy on Bailey Hongzhuang. During this period of time, he had been looking for an opportunity to get close to Bailey Hongzhuang, but the latter was in the limelight. With Di Beichun by her side, he could not find a suitable opportunity. He did not expect to see Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun separated today. He felt that this was a good opportunity, so he naturally followed. He wanted to strike up a conversation with Bailey Hongzhuang, but he did not expect to make such a scene. "Duan Huali, I have made it very clear that this Yunling fruit is what my sister needs, so it is absolutely impossible to let it go. If you must stand up for this woman, then we can only be enemies." Chu Yunyao's eyes gradually sharpened. "You have to think about it carefully. This Yunling fruit requires a lot of points. Do you want to spend so much for this outer disciple? You don't have to worry about the points. Now in the entire Penglai Palace, there are not many people who have more points than her." "What do you mean?" Chu Yunyao frowned. For a moment, she could not understand the meaning of Duan Huali's words. "It seems that you don't know that she is Bailey Hongzhuang who made the healing medicine," Duan Huali said slowly. As Duan Huali's voice fell, Chu Yunyao couldn't help but stare at Bailey Hongzhuang. Her gaze changed, and there was a bit of astonishment and surprise. She didn't expect that the young woman in front of her was the rumored Bailey Hongzhuang. She had been in retreat before, so she didn't see Bailey Hongzhuang in person. At this moment, she had just returned from the experiential learning. She didn't expect that the person in front of her was Bailey Hongzhuang. However, now that she thought about the comments everyone had said, she was really as beautiful as a fairy with a moving temperament. It was just that she was a little younger than she thought. Not only that, they are not the outer disciples in your words. Today, the Hall Master has made an exception and promoted them to inner disciples. Duan Huali continued. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's ability could be said to be at the bottom of the inner disciples, everyone knew very well that Bailey Hongzhuang had a promising future in Penglai Palace. Chapter 3698. I was wondering why Duan Huali suddenly changed his temperament this time. It turns out that this woman is extraordinary. Chu Yinyao said meaningfully, but her eyes looking at Bailey Hongzhuang became deeper and deeper, and there was a hint of resentment. Bailey Hongzhuang, let me tell you, in this Penglai Palace, if you rely on your own strength, you still have a chance to live well. But if you want to rely on a man just by relying on a face, sooner or later you will end up being abandoned. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. You can rest assured, I will definitely not end up like that, but looking at the way you say this, it seems like you're speaking from the bottom of your heart. Chu Yinyao's expression was stagnant, and her whole body was stiff for a moment. Then she glared at Bailey Hongzhuang with hatred, but she didn't say anything. Duan Huali, this Yunling fruit was taken by my sister, Chu Yunshang. Now you dare to treat my sister like this. You have to deal with the consequences yourself. As soon as her voice fell, Chu Yinyao didn't say anything more and left angrily. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but look at each other. She was just unhappy with Chu Yinyao's statement, so she refuted it, but she didn't expect Chu Yinyao's painful expression. It seemed that she had inadvertently told the truth. She finally left. Shangguan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief. She was worried that Chu Yinyao had been unwilling to let go. This matter was a bit difficult. She didn't expect that after Duan Huali reported the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang, she would leave so sensibly. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Shangguan Yingying on the shoulder and said, "It's okay. We are right in this matter. Even if she doesn't want to leave, she won't get anything good." She never had the habit of giving her things to others, let alone when they were in the right. After seeing that Chu Yinyao had finally left, Duan Huali's slightly gloomy face also became better. He turned around and smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang, saying, "Junior sister Bailey, no one will snatch this Yunling fruit from you anymore." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head and said, "Thank you, senior brother Duan." Although she hated Duan Huali very much, now was not the time to shed all pretense of cordiality. She did not want to cause many twists and turns when she left Penglai Palace. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Shangguan Yingying away, but Duan Huali quickly followed. "Junior sister Bailey, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Everyone is busy with cultivation on weekdays. I don't think senior brother Duan is such a free person. It's better not to waste time." Duan Huali smiled faintly. "If I want to spend time on others, it's naturally a waste. However, I don't feel that it's a waste to spend time on junior sister Bailey. On the contrary, I think it's a kind of enjoyment." The low voice was full of ambiguity. Just by opening his mouth, Duan Huali had already shown his purpose incisively and vividly. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly, but her face was very cold. "I feel the opposite of senior brother Duan." Her merciless words caused Duan Huali's expression to turn awkward. However, he quickly recovered and said, "Junior sister Bailey, I don't think I have offended you. Why do you have such an expression when you see me? Aren't you being too unreasonable?" Chapter 3699. Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was very firm, as if talking to Duan Huali was a test of her patience. She had never liked this kind of person who stuck to her like a dog-skin plaster, let alone an arrogant and stubborn guy like Duan Huali. It's too early to make a conclusion about whether there is fate or not. Duan Huali did not care about Bailey Hongzhuang's rejection. On the contrary, he seemed to have guessed that Bailey Hongzhuang would have such an expression. It didn't matter what she said. Looking at Duan Huali like this, Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but exclaim. In terms of shamelessness, Duan Huali was really at the peak. After Bailey Hongzhuang paid the points, she put the Yunling fruit into her Chinquan bag. No matter what, it was a great harvest for her to be able to get the Yunling fruit today. Although Duan Huali's appearance was an eyesore, as long as he didn't exist, it was fine. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had been unwilling to pay attention to him, after leaving a few cold words and leaving, Duan Huali looked at her departing back, and a smile slowly appeared on his lips. Bailey Hongzhuang, you will be my woman sooner or later. However, Duan Huali did not notice that not far behind him, Chu Yunyao's gaze was on him. After hearing Duan Huali's words that were like an oath, Chu Yunyao's hands could not help but clench into fists. Duan Huali, that woman's attitude toward you is so cold, but you still shamelessly follow her. It's really surprising. Her dark pupils flashed with a cold and ruthless light. That woman is so different to you. Hongzhuang, do you think that Chu Yunyao will come looking for trouble with us? Shangguan Yingying's eyes revealed a trace of worry. If only I'd found the Yunling fruit earlier, then I wouldn't have gotten into such trouble for no reason. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and reached out to hold Shangguan Yingying's arm as they walked briskly. Yingying, your speed is already fast enough. At least you got the Yunling fruit before Chu Yunyao. I really have to thank you. If you didn't get the Yunling fruit, I don't know when you would be able to find such a treasure again. As for what Chu Yunyao's plan is, it's not something we can control. She can do whatever she wants. Anyway, we have always been in trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent. If she was the one who found the Cloud Spirit fruit first, the situation wouldn't have changed. Since it was destined to be like this, she was not a person who was afraid of trouble. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying's face looked better. Then I'm relieved. I always felt guilty in my heart. You did all this for me. What's there to be sorry about? Hongzhuang, you've been helping me ever since we arrived at Penglai Island. I know you value our friendship, but I still feel guilty about it. Moreover, my recklessness sometimes causes me trouble. I'll change for the better in the future. Even if I can't help you, at least I can't cause trouble. Shangguan Ying looked serious, and her words came from the bottom of her heart. Ying, you're treating me as an outsider. Bailey Hongzhuang said. Chapter 3700. Seeing that Shangguan Yingying was so sincere, the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips became softer, but she did not say anything more, because she knew that Shangguan Yingying had already made a decision in her heart, and no matter what she said, it would not change anything. Originally, this situation was not very obvious, but after she gave the fiery fruits to Shangguan Ying and Wenziren, the two of them had some changes in their mood. Since then, they had become inner hall disciples because she had handed over the prescription of the healing medicine, which undoubtedly magnified this problem. Both she and Di Beichan felt this, but Di Beichan had already told her that Wan and Ziren would adjust themselves, so there was no need to worry. Moreover, this was a kind of motivation for them. Whether it was when Ziren or Shangguan Yingying, they were never easily discouraged. On the contrary, the more they fought, the braver they became. This was their nature. By the way, Hongzhuang, I always felt that the atmosphere between Chu Yunyao and Duan Huali just now was a little unusual. Don't you think so? Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and nodded. It is indeed a little strange that Chu Yunyao seems to be particularly concerned about Duan Huali's opinion and vaguely seems to be unyielding. She never forgot Chu Yunyao's resentful gaze when she left. From a woman's intuition, she felt that Chu Yunyao did not hate her because of the Cloud Spirit fruit. But because of Duan Huali? That's right, that's what I think. Shangguan Yingying nodded, but that Duan Huali has always liked to provoke women, so it's normal for him to have some emotional debt. But looking at the situation, it should be that there's a king between Duan Huali and Chu Yunshang. I'm not sure why Chu Yunyao is like this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Why do you care so much? What happened between them has nothing to do with us. Even if there's a conflict, it won't involve us. That's true. Shangguan Yingying smiled faintly. Now that we have the cloudy spiritual fruit, Hongzhuang, I think you should quickly consume it. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will cause more trouble. Shangguan Yingying's expression was complicated. She always felt that Chu Yunyao was not someone who was easy to deal with. The reason why Chu Yunyao left just now had a lot to do with Duan Huali. Now that Duan Huali was no longer here, if Chu Yunyao came looking for trouble again, it would not be a good thing. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. All right, I'll go into seclusion after we return. Once I'm done, we'll set off for the Devil Training Tower. Yes. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang returned to their residence, Di Beichen and Di Beichun had yet to return. Bailey Hongzhuang took the lead and began her closed-door cultivation. To the current them, time was undoubtedly very precious. The sooner she finished her seclusion, the sooner they could head to the Devil Training Tower. Tiangang Sect. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others left, Si Tuyin and the others had been worried. They did not know how Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were doing. Lan Yinshao and Yu Linfeng had always planned to head to Penglai Island to find traces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, Lan Yinshao had just taken over the Lan family and still had many things to deal with. It would not be easy for him to leave for a while. Chapter 3701. At the same time, they also contacted the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect. Although they knew that the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect had a fearless personality, they were still shocked that he would so easily allow Wen Xiren and Lan Bingyun to head to that place with an uncertain future. However, after they found the Cloud Sword sect's sect master and chatted for a while, they noticed that the Cloud Sword sect's sect master's courage was truly shocking. In the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, this was a training that belonged to Wen Xiren and the rest. Everyone's excessive worry would instead shackle their development. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had decided to leave quietly, they must have already made their decision. As their elders, the best method was to respect their decision. This way of thinking was undoubtedly different from Lan Yinshao and the rest. However, after careful consideration, they understood that the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect's words were reasonable. If they're going out to train, I could be more at ease. However, Di Beichen's condition is so terrible. If anything happens to him, Hongzhuang definitely won't be able to accept it. This is what I'm most worried about. Mu Lingbing's eyes were filled with worry. Her Hongzhuang had suffered too much since she was young. Now that everything had gotten better with great difficulty, Di Beichun had fallen into danger. She was a sentimental person and naturally understood how deep Bailey Hongzhuang's feelings were. If something happened to Di Beichun, she was really worried that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't be able to live on. You don't have to worry too much for now. Didn't you say that they have at least a year? At least, there won't be any problems during this year. Lan Yinshao held Mu Lingbing's shoulders and gently comforted her. A year's time is neither too long nor too short. They will need several months to reach Penglai Island. If they do not succeed in reaching Penglai Island, they will be finished. Mu Lingbing turned to look at Lan Yinshao, her eyes filled with tears. Yinshao, what do you think our Hongzhuang did wrong? Why is the heavens so unfair to her? 20 years ago, she always thought that Hongzhuang was fortunate to be her daughter. However, after various things happened, not only did Bailey Hongzhuang not enjoy it, she was riddled with scars and shouldered countless hardships at a young age. She really didn't understand why so many things had to be shouldered by Bailey Hongzhuang alone. Binger, don't think of this situation in a bad way. Perhaps Hongzhuang and the rest are going smoothly. Penglai Island is Penglai Island. There's something that we don't have. Hongzhuang will be cured. I believe that the heavens is fair. They definitely won't treat Hong Zhuang. Hong Zhuang. Hong Zhuang. Hong Tian is... Really? Will it really be like this? Mu Lingbing held Lan Yunxiao's hand, her eyes filled with hope. Lan Yunxiao nodded firmly. Yes, it definitely will. Situ Yan's mood was also very complicated. One was his biological granddaughter, and the other was the grandson he had raised since he was young. Originally, he was the happiest about their union, but he didn't expect that there would be such twists and turns, making him abnormally worried. Situ, are you thinking about Bei-chan and the rest again? Chapter 3702. Situ Yan was a person who did not like to express his feelings. He had always buried everything in his heart. Although Mu Jin's had not been with Situ Yan for many years, she was very familiar with his temperament. Every time Situ Yan looked in the direction of Di Beichen's palace, she knew that Situ Yan was worried and thinking about him. Di Beichen's illness had caused everyone's hearts to be in suspense. However, they were also very clear that even if they went to Penglai Palace, they would not be of much help. If they had the herbs, Di Beichen and the rest would definitely think of ways to get their hands on them. If they did not have the herbs, then even if they went, it would be of no use. Hearing this, Situ Yin turned to look at Mu Jin's behind him and said lightly, "They have already left for several months. After such a long time, I wonder how they're doing now. Whether it is Bei-chun or Hong Zhuang, they're the most outstanding youths I have ever seen. I believe that they will succeed." Mu Jin's had always been very worried in her heart. However, she always believed that Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Bei-chun were people with extraordinary talent. Perhaps these things would be difficult for others, but for Bailey Hong Zhuang and Bei-chun, it was possible. Situ Yin nodded. "I have always watched Bei-chun grow up. I am very clear about his abilities. It is because of this that I did not let everyone go. I believe that they will be able to solve this problem." Mu Jin smiled faintly. "Although that is the case, don't you still think about it every day? Isn't everyone the same?" "That's true." Just as Mu Jin and Situ Yan were discussing this matter, news suddenly came from outside. Sect Master, a cultivator who claimed to be from Penglai Island, left a letter and a Chinquan bag at the foot of the mountain before leaving. The great elder hurriedly handed the letter to Situ Yan. Ever since the young sect master left, everyone had been paying close attention to Penglai Island. Now that there was a letter from Penglai Island, he naturally thought of the young sect master. Perhaps the young sect master had asked someone to send it back. Hearing this news, Situ Yin and Mu Jinsei were stunned. This was beyond their expectations. "Situ, hurry up and open it. Is there any news about Hong Zhuang and the others?" Situ Yin nodded and quickly opened the letter. After reading the contents of the letter, his hands couldn't help but tremble. "It's really from Bei-chen." As soon as these words came out, Mu Jinsei's eyes lit up. She was pleasantly surprised. What did the letter say? The letter says that they have successfully found the medicinal ingredients. Bei-chen's cursed body has been successfully transformed. They originally planned to return, but they were recruited by the Penglai Palace on the Penglai Island, so they temporarily stayed there to train. They will return in the future, so we don't have to worry. A smile gradually appeared on Si Tuyan's face. The huge rock that had been pressing down on his heart was finally lifted at this moment. Mu Jinsei took the letter and carefully read through its contents. Her face also showed a gratified smile. "I knew that they would be blessed by the heavens." Sure enough, they succeeded. Now, everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 3703. Situ Yan's kind and calm face revealed a happy smile. "Looks like they are developing well in Penglai Island. We don't need to worry about them. Indeed, these children are all heaven's favored children. You guys might not even be able to compare to them." Mu Jins chuckled. "After all, their cultivation talent is much better than yours." Situ Yin nodded. Although these words were belittling him, he wasn't angry. Bei-chen and the rest are indeed much more outstanding than us. Who knows, they might even be able to make a name for themselves in Penglai Island. They have really grown up. Situ Yan's deep voice was filled with relief. Although Di Beichun had shown extraordinary maturity early on, in Situ Yan's heart, he was still that child who had always worked hard by his side. It was only now that he realized that Di Beichun had grown up and could truly take charge of things on his own. Lingbing and the rest have always been worried about Hongzhuang. We should quickly tell them this news. Mu Jintz hurriedly said. During this period of time, she knew that Mu Lingbing had always been filled with guilt towards Bailey Hongzhuang. She thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would finally be able to live a happy life. Who would have thought that something like this would happen again? Speaking of which, the one who suffered the most was Mu Lingbing. That's right, we should make a trip over. I will send someone to inform Limitless Palace. Ever since there was a teleportation array, it was undoubtedly much more convenient to travel from Tiangang's sect to the Lan family. In a short period of time, Situ Yin and Mu Jintz arrived at the Lan family. The Lan family's disciples all recognized Situ Yin and Mu Jintz and respectfully welcomed them in. Father, Mother, why are you free to come today? Mu Lingbing saw that Situ Yin and Mu Jintz had suddenly come. While she was happy, she was also surprised. They had always maintained contact with each other, but most of the time, it was Mu Jintz who came to visit her. Now, that even Situ Yin had come, could it be that something had happened? Lingbing, I'm here to tell you a piece of good news. Mu Jintz went straight to the point. Good news? Mu Lingbing raised a brow. What good news? Now, her life in the Lan family was very comfortable. The only things she cared about in her heart were Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun. Other news didn't mean much to her. We received a letter from Hongzhuang and the rest today. Mu Lingbing and Lan Yinshao, who had just arrived, couldn't help but be startled. They looked at Mu Jintz in astonishment, wondering if they had misheard. Mother, what did you say? You said you received a letter from Hongzhuang? Mu Lingbing's gaze was fixed on Mu Jinsei, worried that she had misheard. Mu Jinsei nodded. That's right. We suddenly received a letter from them today, so we immediately came to tell you the news. Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao immediately came forward, their faces filled with surprise and worry. What did the letter say? They said they've successfully found the medicinal ingredients they needed. Beichun's cursed body has been removed, so there's no need to worry about this problem in the future. Mu Jin smiled. Hearing this, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing couldn't help but sigh in relief. A genuine smile finally appeared on their faces. Chapter 3704. They've been recruited by the largest faction on Penglai Island, so they've decided to stay there for a while. They've specially sent a letter back to tell us not to worry. Situ Yin slowly spoke and handed the letter to Lan Yunxiao. It looks like they're doing well on Penglai Island. Although they already knew the contents of the letter, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing couldn't help but read every word again before revealing a relieved smile. Thank the heavens and earth that Beichun is safe and sound. Mu Lingbing's eyes were filled with tears of joy. She had been waiting for news with apprehension, but now she could finally relax. No one knew how tormented her heart had been during this period of time. It wasn't easy for her to be reunited with her daughter, so she didn't want to lose her again. Fortunately, the heavens finally opened their eyes and didn't take away Hong Zhuang's happiness. All right, Situ, I remember there's a Chinquan pouch. Mu Jin suddenly asked. They'd been so focused on the letter that they'd forgotten about the pouch. Only now did they remember. I almost forgot about it if you didn't mention it. Situ Yin was startled and immediately took out the Chinquan pouch. This Chinquan pouch was sent along with the letter. I wonder what's inside. As the Chinquan pouch was opened, the four's eyes were filled with curiosity. They didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang's group had brought back. However, when they clearly saw the contents of the Chinquan bag, the four of them could not help but be stunned. They saw that the Chinquan bag was filled with pieces of sparkling crystal stones, and they even contained dense yuan power ripples. What's this? Mu Lingbing curiously looked at the crystals in front of her. Although she didn't know what they were, she could tell that they weren't simple. They're spirit stones. Situ Yin immediately recognized the spirit stone. This spirit stone is rich in heaven and earth elemental energy. If cultivators use this spirit stone to cultivate, it can greatly increase their cultivation speed. Outside of our island, spirit stones are almost invisible. However, spirit stones are a necessity for everyone on Penglai Island to cultivate. It is precisely because of these spirit stones that many talented cultivators insist on staying on Penglai Island. However, it is not easy to obtain these spirit stones. Although Si Tian had never been to Penglai Island, he had a certain understanding of the spirit stones. This is a spirit stone? Lan Yinxiao held the spirit stone in his hand. He had heard of it before, but had never seen it before. Situ Yin nodded. That's right. Since it's not easy to obtain spirit stones, how could they send back so many spirit stones? Mu Lingbing's face was full of shock. Even though she had only taken a casual glance, she knew that this was a shocking number. It seems that they did not lie to us. They are really doing well on Penglai Island. Otherwise, they would not have given us so many cultivation resources. Mu Jinsei's lips curled into a smile. Originally, she was a little worried that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had said those words to make them feel more at ease. But now, it seemed that they really could be at ease. Look, there's a piece of paper here. Mu Lingbing's sharp eyes saw that there was a piece of paper in the Chinquan pouch and immediately took it out. Looking at it, they saw that there were only simple words written on it. Chapter 3705. Situ Yin and the rest's expressions changed when they read the contents of the paper. Penglai Island was a place they'd admired for a long time, but had never set foot in. Now, they were going to explore it. It looks like these little fellows are already used to their days on Penglai Island. They actually hope that we can go with them. Situ Yin chuckled, his calm face filled with relief and gratification. Lan Yinxiao nodded with a smile. Since Penglai Island can attract so many experts, it must be attractive enough. Beichin and the rest have astonishing talent in cultivation, so that's the most suitable place for them to develop. That's good too. Since that place is suitable for them to cultivate, let them properly gain experience. When they're young, they should do what they want to do. Mu Lingbing's eyes were bright and resplendent. To her, as long as she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were safe and sound, it was enough. As for what they wanted to do in the future, that was up to them. Originally, with your cultivation talent, you would have been heaven's favored children. But that damned Yu Siqing delayed you for so many years. Mu Jin's eyes were filled with malice. Even though Yu Siqing had already been punished, she couldn't help but be angry whenever she thought of her. It could only be said that she didn't have a pair of sharp eyes back then. She actually treated this vicious woman as a true friend, which led to the tragedy of her daughter and granddaughter. Back then, Lan Yinxiao was a genius that stunned everyone. He was able to achieve such results at such a young age and wasn't any weaker than Di Beichin. Unfortunately, when he was in the limelight, he was persecuted by Yu Siqing. Many years of torment and delay caused his body to deteriorate greatly. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were exquisite and managed to adjust Lan Yinxiao and Mu Lingbing's bodies back to normal. However, after being delayed for so many years, they would have to spend even more time on cultivation. If this hadn't happened, Lan Yinxiao and Mu Lingbing wouldn't have achieved such results. Hearing the regret and hatred in Mu Jin's voice, Mu Lingbing couldn't help but hold her hand. Mother, the rain has passed and the sky is clear. At worst, we can just start over again. It is indeed a pity that we have wasted some time, but we will have more time in the future. That may be the case, but the younger one is, the more room for improvement there is. Mu Jinsei sighed. How could she not understand that Mu Lingbing was trying to console her? But regret was of no use. In the past, we only wanted to increase our strength, but after going through so many things, I feel that it's most important for us to stay together. Mu Lingbing's eyes were calm, and her smile was sweet. In the past, she always had many things she wanted to do. Now, She just wanted her loved ones to be safe and sound. Being able to stay with her family was her greatest wish. Lan Yinxiao looked at Mu Lingbing affectionately. His thoughts were the same as Mu Lingbing's. Nothing was more important than being with his family. Seeing Lan Yinxiao and Mu Lingbing like this, Mu Jin smiled comfortably. I didn't expect you two children to be even more insightful than me. But you're right. With your current situation, you already have many things you should have. Chapter 3706. Spirit stones are very helpful for cultivators to raise their cultivation. With these spirit stones, you'll be able to increase your cultivation faster. Situ Yin looked at Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing. Both of their talents were excellent, but they had been delayed. However, after so many years of suppression, once it erupted, the speed was extremely fast. Most importantly, he discovered that Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunqi's cultivation speed was extremely fast, far surpassing his expectations. If they continued to develop like this, he believed that the two would be able to obtain the attention of the past again. Lan Yunxiao nodded with a smile. There are many spirit stones here. Let's divide them. Bing, and I will take Limitless Palace's share. Now that the four major forces had already joined forces, they were bound together for good or ill. Limitless Palace had helped them a lot to reach this point. Lan Yunxiao was also grateful to Yu Linfeng. On one hand, it was because Yu Linfeng had taken care of Bailey Hongzhuang. On the other hand, it was because of Yu Linfeng's generosity and trust. If he hadn't cultivated on Yu Linfeng's stairway to heaven, his cultivation speed would have been extremely slow. That's right. Then you two should make a trip there and tell them the good news. Tian nodded. During this period of time, they've been worried about Hongzhuang just as much as we have. That's right. I'm sure they'll be very happy after hearing the news. When Mu Lingbing told the news to Yu Linfeng and Yu Linfeng, they were first stunned before revealing joyful smiles. They actually sent a letter back? Nangong Wu's eyes flickered with disbelief. Mu Lingbing nodded. That's right. When we first received the letter, we couldn't help but be astonished. However, the handwriting is indeed Beichen's. As long as we know they're safe and sound, we can be at ease. Yu Linfeng smiled comfortably. It seems like the heavens aren't unkind to them. They've successfully found the herbs, and Beichen's constitution has successfully changed. Now, we don't have to worry anymore. That's right. Lan Yunxiao sighed. The younger generation's performance has always been outstanding. Perhaps we won't be so successful even if we go there. Yu Linfeng chuckled and nodded. I agree with what you said. These young people are really amazing. These spirit stones were sent back by Hongzhuang and the others. This is yours. Lan Yunxiao handed the Qinquan pouch to Yu Linfeng. Spirit stones? Yu Linfeng was slightly taken aback. They actually brought spirit stones back? They must be living a good life on Penglai Island. That's why they have the time to care about us. Mu Lingbing smiled. They also said that they hope we can go to Penglai Island together in the future. I see. Yu Linfeng smiled and said, this spirit stone is an excellent cultivation resource for cultivators. It can double the results with half the effort. Nangong Wu's eyes flickered with excitement. Hongzhuang is so outstanding. Whether it's her alchemy or medical skills, they've reached the pinnacle. With her around, I think it won't be a problem to get the spirit stones. It was precisely because she knew Bailey Hongzhuang had such abilities that she wasn't too worried. After all, if they were just cultivators, they might encounter a lot of trouble. However, if they were doctors or alchemists, most people wouldn't look for trouble. Chapter 3707. When Di Beichun and when Xiren returned, they noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to be cultivating in her room. However, Shangwan Yingying was nowhere to be seen. Hongzhuang is cultivating. Where has Yingying run off to? When Xiren's eyes flashed with confusion. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying had been together. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had returned, Shangwan Yingying should have returned as well. Why was she nowhere to be seen? She should be nearby. Perhaps she's strolling around somewhere else? Bei-chan slowly said. When Xiren spread his hands, let's wait for a while. She should be back soon. However, as night gradually fell, they still had not seen Shangguan Yingying's figure. The worry in their hearts grew even more intense. Something's not right. Yingying couldn't possibly have left for so long. When Xiren furrowed his brows and his expression turned serious. He had been with Shangguan Yingying for so long and understood her personality very well. She couldn't possibly have left for so long without any instructions. Bei-chan also had a bad premonition in his heart. I'm afraid that something has happened. Something has happened? Xiren was shocked. His dark eyes suddenly focused, and his usually gentle face revealed a rare look of anxiety and worry. We've only just arrived at the Inner Palace today. What could have happened to her here? Indeed, our only enemy in the Inner Palace is Duan Huali. However, Duan Huali only wants to attack the two of us. He shouldn't have done anything to Yingying. Bei-chan's eyes darkened. This situation had exceeded their expectations. Damn it, it's been 4 to 6 hours since this afternoon. If something has happened, then Yingying, Once he thought of a certain possibility, Xiren's eyes instantly turned red. He clenched his fists tightly. If something had happened to Yingying, he didn't dare to think of the consequences. Xiren, calm down first. Bei-chan put his big hand on Xiren's shoulder. We must calmly think about who did this. Only when we know this can we take action. When Xiren, who was about to lose his mind, gradually calmed down after hearing Bei-chan's words. However, his eyes were still red. Although we have many enemies in Penglai Palace, since Hong Zhuang handed over the prescription of the healing medicine, most people no longer dare to be our enemy. In the Inner Palace, except for Duan, there is no one who is our opponent. But Duan Huali, no one else in the Inner Palace. There to be no other enemy to be found, to be our opponent. But Duan Huns, in the Inner Palace has no other. Even if the other party is really looking for trouble, I think they'll be looking for trouble with us. It's indeed strange that they're targeting Yingying. Bei-chan's deep eyes were full of thoughts. Hong Zhuang is in seclusion now. We can't forcibly interrupt her. Otherwise, it will be bad if it backfires. When Xiren clutched his hair tightly with both hands. I can't think of a single possibility. If I had known earlier, I would have accompanied Yingying in the afternoon. That way, Yingying would have been fine. Bei-chan, what kind of danger do you think Yingying will be in? Xiren raised his eyes and looked at Bei-chan. His eyes were full of nervousness. The hope was like a candle flame, as if it would be extinguished with a slight blow. 4 to 6 hours. If the other party really wanted Shangguan Yingying's life, then she would have disappeared from this world. Chapter 3708. Hong Zhuang was with Yingying in the afternoon. Since Hong Zhuang can go into seclusion without worry, it means that nothing happened. Maybe Yingying just went out and hasn't returned yet. Bei-chan comforted Xiren, but when he saw Xiren's bloodshot eyes, he knew that his comforting words were useless. In fact, he also understood Xiren's feelings. If something happened to Hong Zhuang, he probably wouldn't be any better than when Xiren. Let's ask the cultivators living nearby first. Maybe they know something. Bei-chan said. Xiren's eyes lit up, and he quickly nodded. Yes, maybe someone saw her. In the next second, Bei-chan and Xiren split up. As long as someone saw the direction Shangguan Yingying left, they might be able to find some clues. A.O. Lingxiao opened the door and saw Bei-chan and Xiren anxiously asking the cultivators around. Seeing this, he couldn't help but wonder, what are you doing? Seeing A.O. Lingxiao, Bei-chan quickly asked, A.O. Lingxiao, did you see Yingying in the afternoon? They asked many people around, but no one seemed to have seen her. They couldn't get any results. They had expected this. After all, most cultivators were busy cultivating in their houses. There weren't many people who could pay attention to the situation outside. A.O. Lingxiao nodded and said matter-of-factly, I saw her. As soon as these words came out, when Xiren suddenly rushed in front of A.O. Ling Xiao and tightly pulled on A.O. Ling Xiao's clothes. Then where did she go? Seeing Xiren like this, A.O. Ling Xiao couldn't help but be stunned. He seemed to be dumbfounded and said, "What's wrong with you guys? Ying is missing. We can't find any trace of her." Di Beichen explained. However, Xiren didn't care about all this. He pulled A.O. Ling Xiao's collar and asked, "Tell me, where did Ying go? When I came out earlier, I happened to see Shangwan Ying. I saw her running outside in a hurry, so I asked her. She said she was going to look for you." A.O. Ling Xiao frowned. "I didn't think too much about it at that time. I just thought that she was looking for you for something urgent, so I went back to the house." "Looking for us?" Xiren was slightly taken aback. "But we didn't see her. You said that Ying went to look for us in a hurry." Di Beichen immediately noticed the main point and asked again. A.O. Ling Xiao nodded. "That's right. She looked quite anxious at that time. I wanted to ask her a few more questions, but she completely ignored me and ran away. Something's not right." Di Beichen's eyes darkened. Hong Zhuang is currently in closed-door cultivation and nothing has happened. Logically speaking, Ying wouldn't rush to find us. But if she's in such a hurry, she must have been deceived. Xiren's eyes changed. He seemed to understand everything. It seems that the other party used us as bait to lure Ying out. But who is this person? Di Beichen frowned. He couldn't think of a possible candidate. A.O. Ling Xiao also understood that this matter was unusual. Although Shangwan Ying usually liked to find trouble with him, he also knew that Shangwan Ying didn't have any ill intentions. Chapter 3709. A.O. Ling Xiao. Did you see who was looking for Ying? When Xiren quickly asked. As long as they knew who did it, they would be able to find a breakthrough. Naturally, they would be able to find out who lured Shangwan Ying away. A.O. Ling Xiao frowned and recalled the specific situation at the time. He said, "I didn't care too much at the time. I just looked at him. I only remembered that it was a man, but I didn't see him clearly. If he didn't know Shangwan Ying, he wouldn't have paid attention at all. Who did you offend in Penglai Palace? As long as you list these people one by one, you will be able to guess. This kind of thing must be done by an enemy." Listening to A.O. Ling Xiao's words, Di Beichen and Xiren looked at each other. There was a hint of helplessness in their anxious expressions. It's precisely because we thought of all the enemies but still couldn't figure out who it was. A.O. Ling Xiao was stunned. You don't know who it is? If we knew who it was, we wouldn't be running around like headless flies. Xiren's face was extremely ugly. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. While he was thinking about who the other party might be, he couldn't help but think about the various situations that might have happened to Shangwan Ying. He only felt that he was completely confused and couldn't think calmly at all. Di Beichen was relatively calm. The other party used me and Xiren to lure Ying out. This means that the other party didn't intend to attack me and Xiren. If this conspiracy wasn't directed at Ying, then it was directed at Hong Zhuang and Ying. Since we came to Penglai Palace, the four of us have always acted together. Even if we provoked an enemy, it was the four of us who provoked them together. So, I can't figure out who would choose to attack Ying. Hearing this, A.O. Ling Xiao also understood. Indeed, the four of you have always acted together. It is indeed strange that only Shangwan Ying is missing. What about Bailey Hongzhuang? Maybe she knows something. Hong Zhuang is currently in closed-door cultivation. We can't rashly disturb her before she comes out. Otherwise, if any accident happens, the consequences will be very serious. Indeed, A.O. Ling Xiao nodded. But you don't have any clues now. How are you going to find Shangwan Ying? Di Beichen's expression was grave and complicated. There's nothing we can do at the moment. We can only ask around if anyone has seen Ying. As long as someone sees it, we'll be able to identify the opponent. Time was of the essence. No one knew what kind of situation Ying was in. If they were late, no one knew what would happen. A.O. Ling Xiao, can you help us ask around? Di Beichen rarely asked others for help, but in this situation, it was obviously impossible to rely on just a few of them. No problem. A.O. Lingxiao nodded without hesitation. Let's split up and search for clues. I believe someone will notice. Thank you. Di Beichen looked deeply at A.O. Lingxiao. He knew that A.O. Lingxiao usually acted alone and wouldn't intervene in this kind of thing. Chapter 3710. Xiren, in my opinion, in this situation, we need to find some helpers. Otherwise, just the three of us won't be enough. Di Bei-chan said, You first ask the people around here. I will go find Senior Brother Rin and the others to help us look. Okay, Bei-chan, you must be quick. Xiren's voice had become hoarse at some point. His bright eyes were dim and depressed, like a person on the verge of death. This was the first time Di Bei-chan had seen Xiren like this. Shangwan Yingying had been with Xiren since they were young. Di Bei-chan was very clear about their previous feelings. If something really happened to Shangwan Yingying, what would Xiren look like? Di Bei-chan didn't dare to think about it. Di Bei-chan clenched his fists under his sleeves. No matter who the other party was, this action had really touched their reverse scale. When Rin Ziheng and the others heard the news of Shangwan Yingying's disappearance, everyone's faces were filled with shock. Yingying is missing? Rin Zimei's face was full of disbelief. This afternoon, Di Bei-chan and Shangwan Yingying had specially come to say goodbye to them. Who would have thought that Shangwan Yingying would mysteriously disappear at this time? The other party actually used you to lure Shangwan Yingying away instead of taking the initiative to find trouble. This situation is a bit complicated. Ren Ziheng frowned. At this time, he was very calm. It seems that this matter is not easy to handle. The other party obviously used their brains, which also proves that they are serious. As soon as he said this, Di Bei-chan and the others understood what he meant. Today, they had just received special permission from the Palace Master to become Inner Hall disciples. But on this day, something happened to Shangwan Yingying. If the other party directly came to find trouble, it would undoubtedly attract everyone's attention. It would also arouse the dissatisfaction of the Palace Master. Therefore, the other party deliberately lured Shangwan Yingying away. In this way, if Shangwan Yingying died outside, there would be no evidence, and no one would be able to associate her with anyone else. For them to go through so much trouble to set up such a trap, it was enough to see that the other party did not want to scare them. In that case, junior sister Shangwan is really in danger. Chu Jinfeng's face darkened. Junior sister Bailey and the others are now famous in the Penglai Palace. The other party actually chose to make a move at this time. They are really bold. Do you think it could be Duan Huali? Di Bei-chan shook his head. It can't be Duan Huali. If he wanted to target someone, he would target me and Xiren. It's impossible for him to target Yingying. Is he trying to use Yingying to lure you out? No. If he wanted to lure us out, he would have already sent someone to inform us. However, it has been so long, and we haven't received any news at all. If that's the case, things are complicated. Rin Ziheng's face also showed a difficult expression. However, I can be sure of one thing. This time, it must be an inner hall disciple. An outer hall disciple definitely doesn't have such courage. Think carefully. Did you offend any inner hall disciple? Chapter 3711. That's strange. Then who else would make a move against you? When Xiren lowered his head and his eyes flickered with dense contemplation, he seemed to be unable to figure out exactly where this problem came from. Chu Jinfeng frowned and said, Since we don't have any clues now, let's ask around to see if anyone else noticed that junior sister Shangwan went in that direction. After all, every second we delay will put junior sister Shangwan in more danger. In the next second, everyone didn't delay any longer and immediately scattered to ask around. Rin Ziheng and the others immediately called out the cultivators who had a good relationship with them to help them find Shangwan Yingying's traces. When everyone knew that they were helping Di Bei-chan and the others, they were a little surprised, but they were still very happy. After all, the status of Di Beichun and the others was completely different from before. If they could build a good relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang, it would also be beneficial for them. If they didn't have enough points, they might be able to buy some healing medicine from Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the palace master said that the healing medicine could be exchanged with points in the future, he didn't forbid Bailey Hongzhuang from making it. For everyone, it was no different from getting it through 2 channels. Originally, everyone was still thinking about how to get closer to Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't expect that the opportunity would come knocking on their door. For a time, the quiet inner hall became lively. In a short period of time, everyone already knew what had happened. Have you heard? Shangguan Yingying just became an inner hall disciple and disappeared. It's really unexpected. I don't know who did it, but they can't wait. Now, many people are helping to look for her. I guess there's no point in looking for her now. If the other party wanted to take Shangguan Yingying's life, Shangguan Yingying would have already reported to the underworld after such a long time. One Xiren, who was anxiously looking for Shangguan Yingying, heard this sentence and his eyes turned even redder. He immediately rushed up and pulled the other person's collar. What did you say? I dare you to say that again. That person obviously did not expect Wen Xiren to do such a thing. Just as he was about to get angry, he saw Wen Xiren's eyes that were like a trapped beast. The despair and killing intent in his eyes could topple mountains and overturn seas, as if it could drown him in an instant. The man couldn't help but be stunned. Looking at Xiren like this, he was actually speechless. Di Beichun noticed the conflict between Xiren and the other party. He quickly rushed over and said, I'm sorry, he's just too worried. This damn fellow actually said that Yingying is dead. When Xiren said angrily, it's just nonsense. Di Beichun hurriedly said, Xiren, I believe that the other party is not trying to lure the snake out of its hole just to deal with Yingying alone, so we still have hope. At this moment, Ren Ziheng rushed over and said, we found the person who gave Shangguan Yingying the news. As soon as he said this, Xiren and Di Beichun's eyes lit up. They quickly asked, where is that person? I just got the news from others. Let's go and take a look together. As he spoke, when Xiren had already rushed in the direction that Ren Ziheng had pointed out. Chapter 37:12. Soon, Di Beichun and the others found Pan Yin. Pan Yin obviously did not expect that a group of cultivators would suddenly come looking for him and could not help but be stunned. Pan Yin, did you look for junior sister Shangguan in the afternoon? Ren Ziheng recognized Pan Yin, so he took the initiative to ask. Hearing this, Pan Yin was still a little stunned and could not help but ask, what are you doing? Since you want to look for junior sister Shangguan, she has gone missing. Now we are all looking for her. Ren Ziheng said, seeing that we have some friendship, you should tell us about this matter. Tell us quickly. What is your purpose of luring her out? Xiren's eyes were fixed on Pan Yin. That terrifying gaze seemed to want to cut Pan Yin into pieces. Pan Yin wanted to refute, but after seeing Xiren and the other's stance, he swallowed the words he wanted to say. Actually, I don't know anything. I just met someone outside today. He gave me some spirit stones and said that he was not a disciple of Penglai Palace and could not enter Penglai Palace. He asked me to help inform Shangguan Yingying and Bailey Hongzhuang that Di Beichun and Xiren were in danger outside. I don't know what is going on, but that person looked very anxious, so I helped to pass on the message. Pan Yin's expression was a little innocent as he looked at Di Beichun and Xiren in confusion. It seems that the two of you are fine. As soon as these words came out, Di Beichun and the others could not help but look at each other. They did not expect such a situation. Pan Yin, are you telling the truth? Ren Ziheng asked again. Pan Yin frowned slightly. I have never had any interaction with them. It is not worthwhile to tell such a lie to deceive people. Then did you see what the other party looked like? Di Beichun asked. Pan Yin shook his head. The other party was wearing a cloak, and his entire person was covered. I couldn't see clearly. Furthermore, the other party only wanted me to help pass on a message and gave me a sufficient reward. I didn't care about those things at all. You haven't figured out anything yet. Why are you spreading such fake news? Xiren's eyes were extremely gloomy. He thought that he had finally found a breakthrough, but he did not expect the other party to be so secretive that they could not find any clues at all. Seeing Xiren start to question him, Pan Yun's face turned ugly. This kind of thing is just a coincidence. Who would think so much about it? Pan Yun's face turned cold. I only told you the details of this matter because of my relationship with Ren Ziheng. Don't go too far. Seeing that Pan Yun also started to get angry, Ren Ziheng hurriedly spoke out. Junior apprentice Sister Shangwan went missing. Junior apprentice brother Wen is like this because he was too anxious. You mustn't be calculative with him. After all, Junior apprentice Sister Shangwan is the most important person to him. If something happened to the most important person to you, your attitude would not be much better. Hearing this, Pan Yun's face was still a little ugly, but in the end, he did not say anything. Pan Yun, help me think carefully. Is there any details that you can remember from the other party? We are really in a hurry now. Ren Ziheng's face was full of worry. They had been searching together for a long time. Currently, Pan Yun was the only clue. Chapter 37:13. Looking at Ren Ziheng's anxious look, Pan Yun sighed, but still shook his head. I really didn't pay too much attention to the details. The other party was wearing a cloak. Obviously, he didn't want others to recognize his identity. If he did it intentionally, how could I have seen it? Hearing this, Ren Ziheng also knew that Pan Yun was telling the truth and said helplessly, then I'll have to bother you. Junior brother D, let's go. All right. D. Bachin nodded and pulled Wen Xiren out of the house. All the clues were cut off at this moment. As for the cultivator wearing a cloak that Pan Yun mentioned, no matter how much they asked around, they still couldn't get any information. An indescribable sense of despair and worry shrouded Xiren and D. Bachin. After waiting for so long, there was still no news at all. The other party also didn't ask them to do anything. They were afraid that it was really a disaster. The sky gradually brightened. D. Bachin and the rest searched for an entire night, and everyone was a little disappointed. Xiren seemed to have been possessed. He continued to search everywhere, unwilling to give up even a glimmer of hope. Junior brother D, we've asked around everywhere we could, but there was no news at all. I'm afraid the situation is really bad. Ren Ziheng's voice was a little troubled. For the entire night, all his friends had helped to search, but there was no news at all. Although no one was willing to say the result, everyone was already well aware of it. D. Bachin's face was very ugly. I understand, Senior Brother Ren. Sorry to trouble you. We didn't do anything, and we also couldn't find Junior Sister Shangwan. The most important thing now is Junior Brother Wen. He doesn't look good. Ren Ziheng patted D. Bachin's shoulder, shook his head, and sighed. Sigh. D. Bachin nodded, his deep eyes flashing with a persistent light. We'll continue to search. After all, if he's alive, we want to see him. If he's dead, we want to see his corpse. As long as there's a glimmer of hope, we won't give up. We'll also search with you. I believe we will find some clues. When Xiren understood D. Bachin and the others' persistence very well. If it were anyone else, they would not choose to give up at this time. No one would give up until the very last moment. Ren Zimei and Chu Jinfeng were also trying their best to find out more information. This matter is really strange. Junior Sister Shangwan did not offend anyone in the inner palace. It doesn't make sense for the other party to quietly take her away. Junior Sister Shangwan and the others have always moved together. If there is an opponent, it should be the opponent of the four of them. Do you think that the other party wants to defeat us one by one? The light in Chu Jinfeng's eyes suddenly changed as he said. Ren Zimei was stunned. She couldn't help but look at Chu Jinfeng. If the situation was really like this, then it would be a little terrifying. In the evening, the red clouds filled the sky. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her eyes. Her pitch-black phoenix eyes flashed with a trace of joy. The effect of this spiritual cloud fruit is really good. My mental strength has improved a lot. During this period of time, the slow improvement of her mental strength had worried her. Now, with this spiritual cloud fruit, this problem had been solved. It seemed that in the future, she would have to pay more attention to looking for heavenly treasures that could improve her mental strength. Congratulations, Master! Chapter 37:14. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Now, we can set off for the magic training tower with a peace of mind. Yes. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door, she found that Di Beichun and the others were not there. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Why aren't they here? Slowly walking out of the residence, Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about where Di Beichun and the others went when A.O. Lingxiao noticed the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang. He quickly rushed over and said, "Junior Sister Bailey, you finally came out of seclusion." Seeing that the always cold A.O. Lingxiao actually took the initiative to talk to her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but become more puzzled. What's wrong? Did something happen? Something big has happened, A.O. Lingxiao quickly said. Junior Sister Shangwan has been missing since yesterday afternoon. Until now, there's been no news at all. Following A.O. Lingxiao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's face suddenly changed. Her dark eyes shot out a terrifying light. What did you say? Ying is missing? Noticing the sudden burst of aura from Bailey Hongzhuang, A.O. Lingxiao couldn't help but be stunned. His heart was filled with deep surprise. At that moment, he was actually shocked by Bailey Hongzhuang's aura. That's right. Now, everyone is helping to search. It's just that we don't know who did it. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyelids drooped. A figure appeared in her mind at the first moment. Chu Yunyao. She didn't know that her actions were definitely done by Chu Yunyao. However, her intuition told her that it must be Chu Yunyao. Where are Bei Chun and the others now? They are now outside the Penglai Palace. You can find them if you go. Without waiting for A.O. Lingxiao to finish speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang had already disappeared from his sight in the blink of an eye. Beichun. Noticing Di Beichun's figure, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately called out. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, Di Beichun and Wen Xiren's eyes lit up. They quickly came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Hongzhuang, you're out of seclusion? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Yes, I heard that Ying has disappeared. What's going on? Things are like this. Di Beichun told Bailey Hongzhuang everything that had happened before, and then said, we thought about it, but we couldn't find out who did it. Did you offend anyone yesterday? Are you saying that the other party used you to lure Ying out? Of Senov and of Hongzhuang's, Bailey Hongzofyi. That's right. Di Beichun nodded. The other party came prepared. I'm afraid that Ying was taken away after leaving Penglai Palace. Wen Xiren looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with burning eyes. Hongzhuang, do you know who did it? Looking at Xiren in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be shocked. She had never seen Wen Xiren so depressed and desperate. It was a kind of despair that came from the bones. Only the last glimmer of hope remained. Once it was destroyed, it would be a bottomless abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I thought of someone. Who? Di Beichun and Wen Xiren's expression changed. They hadn't found any information because they couldn't find a suspect. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had an idea, they had one more clue. Chapter 37:15. Chu Yinyao. Di Beichun frowned. Who is this? Wen Xiren and the others, who had rushed over after hearing the news, could not help but be stunned when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang mention the name Chu Yinyao. They asked in surprise, It's actually Chu Yinyao? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yesterday afternoon, I met her when I went to the resource hall with Ying. At that time, Ying helped me find the cloud spirit fruit, and that Chu Yinyao also wanted the cloud spirit fruit, so she forced Ying to give it to her. Ying did not agree, and a conflict broke out between the two sides, but in the end, Ying and I still came back. So that's how it is. Everyone immediately understood. No wonder they could not think of a possible candidate. It turned out that it was Chu Yinyao, who had a conflict with Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday afternoon. It's just a cloud spirit fruit. I didn't expect this Chu Yuniao to be so calculative. Deep Beichun frowned, his eyes covered with a layer of haze. This kind of conflict could be said to be very normal between cultivators. He did not expect that the other party would want to take Shangguan Yingying's life for this kind of thing, and her actions were so fast. From the looks of it, that Chu Yuniao probably wanted to lure you and Yingying out together, so that she could retrieve the cloud spirit fruit along the way. It's just that she didn't expect you to go into closed-door training after you returned, and only Yingying went over alone. Ren Zimei said. Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a deep sense of guilt. This matter was completely caused by me. If I hadn't gone into closed-door training as soon as I came back, this wouldn't have happened. This matter is not something you can expect. Deep Beichun comforted. Senior apprentice brother Run. Do you know where Chu Yunyao lives? When Xiren hurriedly asked. Now that they knew who the culprit was, they naturally couldn't delay any longer. Ren Ziheng nodded. I know, follow me. In the next second, everyone walked in the direction of the inner hall, but in the process of walking, Ren Ziheng could not help but remind everyone. This Chu Yunyao is not a person to be trifled with. Her strength is also very outstanding in the inner hall. Although we have guesses now, we have no evidence. If we question her like this, I'm afraid she won't admit it. Yes, although I'm not familiar with Chu Yunyao, I have some understanding of her. This woman is very arrogant. As long as she likes something, she must get it. In addition, her sister's strength is very strong. Ordinary people are not willing to provoke them. It's very troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were sharp. Then in your opinion, doesn't this seem like something Chu Yunyao would do? Hearing this, Ren Ziheng and the others looked at each other and nodded. It's possible. Is Yingying. You is. You. Is. You. You. Her. Is. Be. Ease. No matter who it is, if they dare to touch my Yingying, they will die. Xiren's cold voice sounded as if it came from hell. It was cold without any temperature, and the hidden killing intent made people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Ren Ziheng and others looked at Xiren in horror. They could feel the deep hatred in Xiren's heart. It was so terrifying that it made people shudder. Chapter 37:16. Senior Brother Ren, do you know how strong Chu Yunyao is? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ren Ziheng. This Chu Yunyao actually dared to attack Yingying. Now that such a long time had passed, she didn't know how Yingying was doing. If something happened to Yingying, Bailey Hongzhuang subconsciously looked at Xiren. If something happened to Yingying, then she would definitely not forgive herself. Now what she hoped most was that Yingying was not killed. But no matter what, she and Chu Yunyao were irreconcilable. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Ren Ziheng understood that Bailey Hongzhuang and her party were planning to fight Chu Yunyao head-on. This was really a battle to the death. Junior sister Bailey, Chu Yunyao is very strong. I advise you not to be her enemy. This is not good for you at all. Do you think this situation is possible? Xiren's cold voice sounded again. Ren Ziheng was stunned, and Chu Jinfeng and others looked a little helpless, and then showed a look of understanding. If I understand correctly, her cultivation should have reached the 9th level of the Purple Realm, and her sister Chu Yunshang seems to be stronger. It is because of this that they can be so unscrupulous. I know that your talent is amazing, but as far as the current situation is concerned, you are still not their opponent. Even if you really want to be enemies, I advise you to avoid the edge for the time being. It is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. I believe that you will succeed in the future. After understanding Chu Yunyao's failure, the hearts of Di Beichen and others couldn't help but sink. An inner palace disciple was different from an outer palace disciple. That was the true strength of an outer palace disciple. Wanting to fight and defeat an inner palace disciple was not an easy task. Moreover, the gap between them seemed to be unusually large. My big brother is right. Chu Yunshang still has a sweetheart in the Penglai Palace. Her strength is also extremely strong. Once this conflict is made, it is equivalent to poking a hornet's nest. Temporary patience is the best choice. Rinzime couldn't help but remind. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were gloomy to the extreme, and her voice was cold to the bone. So what if they are strong? Offending them was the same as poking a hornet's nest? It's best if she didn't do it. As long as she did, I'll make her understand what it means to poke a hornet's nest. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold voice was powerful and resonant. Her eyes were filled with anger. Anyone who dared to touch the people she cared about, she would not let them have a good time. Indeed, in terms of strength, they weren't a match for Chu Yunyao and the others. But in terms of charisma, she was confident that she would absolutely not be inferior to Chu Yunyao and the others. As Bailey Hongzhuang's words fell, Rin Ziheng and the others couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, but they quickly reacted. Junior Sister Bailey, if we use your medical skills, this is indeed possible, Chu Jinfeng said. He believed that many cultivators would be happy to receive a favor from a top-notch doctor. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally stopped. Junior Brother D, the building in front is where Chu Yunyao lives. Rin Ziheng said. Di Beichun glanced ahead. Just as Rin Ziheng and others were about to continue moving forward with them, Di Beichun said, Senior Brother Rin, you can take us here. Leave the rest to us. Chapter 37:17. We are already very grateful that you can bring us here. Chu Yunyao and the others have a great influence in Penglai Inner Hall. Even if we really want to be enemies, it's our business. You don't have to get involved in this mess. Di Beichun looked determined. From the various situations introduced by Rin Ziheng and the others, Chu Yunyao and the others were indeed not to be offended. This matter was related to the four of them, so they had to take action. At worst, they would not stay in Penglai Inner Hall, but they could not implicate Rin Ziheng and the others. Di Beichun is right. Leave the rest to us. Senior Brother Ren, you have helped us a lot. We are very grateful. In the next second, Di Beichun and the others ignored the opposition of Ren Ziheng and the others and walked directly into Chu Yunyao's residence. Seeing Di Beichun and the others leave like this, Ren Zimei's face was full of worry. In their situation, there will definitely be a conflict if they go in like this. If they fight here, Junior Sister Bailey and the others won't have any benefits. Junior Brother D and the others are thinking for us. In our situation, if we offend Chu Yunyao and the others, I'm afraid our future in Penglai Inner Hall will not be easy. Ren Ziheng sighed. If he was a little stronger, he really want to go in with Di Beichun and the others. However, he was not strong enough. The fate of the cultivators who had offended Chu Yunyao and the others was still vivid in his mind. He could not completely ignore their own safety. Then what should we do now? Chu Jinfeng's face was very ugly. This feeling is really suffocating. Let's look at the situation here. If Junior Brother D and the others are really in danger, then we will immediately go to find Master Long. Ren Ziheng looked serious. However, Junior Brother D and the others are not innate people. Since they asked us about the strength of Chu Yunyao and the others before, they must have already made plans in their hearts. Even if there is a conflict, it should not be in such a disadvantageous situation. Rinzime nodded slightly. What you said makes sense. I hope nothing happened to Junior Sister Shangwan. Otherwise, I'm afraid this situation will be out of control. Just thinking about Xiren's expression made Rinzime's heart sink. Although they hadn't known each other for a long time, she knew the feelings between Xiren and Wenxinya. Once something happened to Shangwan Yingying, when Xiren would not be able to control it even if he wanted to. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two arrived, Chu Yunyao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang indifferently and said, Isn't this Junior Sister Bailey whom I just met yesterday? How come you're free to visit me today? In the face of Chu Yunyao's hypocritical chatter, Bailey Hongzhuang was not in the mood to feign civility at all. Where is Yingying? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Hearing this, Chu Yunyao raised her eyebrows slightly and said with a chuckle, Haha, did I hear wrongly? How dare you ask me where your companions went? How would I know where she went? Don't pretend. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were slightly cold. There is no one else except you. You better tell us where Ying is in full detail. Otherwise, it won't be good if we make a fuss. Are you threatening me? Chu Yunyao narrowed her eyes. The next second, Chu Yunyao's eyes became disdainful. You inexplicably came to my residence to question me about this groundless matter, and now you're threatening me. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Chapter 37:18. Chu Yunyao, tell me what you have done to Ying. When Xiren could no longer control his emotions after seeing Chu Yunyao's disgusting appearance, an astonishing, murderous aura rose in his heart. Looking at Xiren's blood-red eyes, Chu Yunyao was also a little surprised, but she quickly recovered. I didn't expect that woman to have an infatuated lover. It's really surprising. Cut the crap. We are not in the mood to waste time here with you. When Xiren said coldly. Seeing this, Chu Yunyao glanced at Xiren with displeasure, spread out her hands, and said, I have already said it very clearly. I have never seen Shangwan Ying. Naturally, I don't know where she has gone. Chu Yunyao, why do you have to hide it now? Don't you think you are amazing? Don't tell me you don't even dare to admit what you have done? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. At this moment, looking at Chu Yunyao's expression, she was more and more sure that her judgment was not wrong. Ying's disappearance must have something to do with Chu Yunyao. Don't lie to me. Chu Yunyao sneered. I am indeed unhappy to see you, but this matter has nothing to do with me. If you don't have evidence, don't talk nonsense with me. If you don't believe me, you can ask the cultivators living nearby. Everyone knows that I have been staying here since I came back yesterday and have not left at all. The next moment, Chu Yunyao walked out of the house directly, attracting the disciples living around. These disciples who have just joined the inner hall are really impressive. They actually came here to challenge me. Everyone, help me testify. Have I been staying here since I came back from the resource hall yesterday and have not left at all? Listening to Chu Yunyao's words, the cultivators living around also came out to watch the show. Indeed, Chu Yunyao only went out for a while at noon yesterday. After coming back, she has been with me and has never left. I can testify to this. I came out a few times and saw Chu Yunyao. She should have never left. Chu Yunyao turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Now you should have heard it clearly, right? This matter has nothing to do with me. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. She didn't believe what Chu Yunyao said. It was precisely because her performance was flawless that it was the biggest flaw. Since you've done this, you've naturally planned everything. I'm sure you've arranged the alibi a long time ago, when Xiren said. Do you mean that I colluded with others to deceive you? Chu Yunyao laughed, and her eyes suddenly became gloomy. Who do you think you are? Do I need to do that? When Xiren's expression also turned ugly. The other party's arrogance had been fully displayed through these few words. Chu Yunyao was indeed here yesterday and didn't leave. We even chatted with her for a long time. I'm afraid this matter really has nothing to do with her. Some of the surrounding cultivators also spoke up again. Chu Yunyao's expression changed. Looking at the appearance of the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that these people did not seem to be lying. In this way, this matter was really a little strange. Hiring a murderer. Chapter 37:19. Di Beichen and the others couldn't help but look at each other. They had the same idea. Chu Yunyao's alibi was too deliberate. It was precisely because it was too deliberate that they were more and more sure that it was Chu Yunyao who did it. However, without evidence, Chu Yunyao could always deny it, so they couldn't do anything. Chu Yunyao could afford to waste time, but they couldn't. Chu Yunyao, if anything happens to Ying, I will never let you go. Xiren looked at Chu Yunyao fiercely, and a strong hatred erupted in his chest. He wished he could tear the person in front of him into pieces. Noticing Xiren's fierce gaze, Chu Yunyao's eyes flashed with a trace of fluctuation. If you dared to confront me directly, you wouldn't have left with your tail between your legs yesterday. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Chu Yunyao. Didn't you go through so much trouble just to make sure that I can't find any evidence? Let me tell you, even if I don't find any evidence, I can still be sure that it was you who did it. Bailey Hongzhuang's deep black eyes flashed with a cold and crazy light. She looked at Chu Yunyao with certainty. You'd better pray that Ying is still alive. Otherwise, I will definitely let you taste the taste of regret. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Chu Yunyao, you were the first to provoke this matter, so you have to be prepared for crazy revenge. Di Bei-chen's face was gloomy as he slowly said, every word deeply hitting Chu Yunyao's heart. Chu Yunyao looked at the three people in front of her in surprise. She couldn't believe it. The cultivation of the three people in front of her was not even a match for her, but when she heard their fierce words, her heart was shocked for no reason. She actually felt a little guilty. This was too unbelievable. Her ink-black, jade-like eyes were like a black whirlpool, flickering with a cold light. Chu Yunyao, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to tell me or not? You want to pin this groundless crime on me? I advise you to give up this idea. Chu Yunyao was unmoved. I could see it clearly at a glance. Where is Shangguan Yingying's shadow? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're Master Long's favorite. This isn't a place where you can behave atrociously. Bailey Hongzhuang, it won't do you any good if I report this to my superiors. You'd better get out of here while I'm trying to persuade you. You. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were sharp as she looked at Chu Yunyao. Her fists were clenched so hard that her knuckles were white. This damned woman wanted to make them unhappy with such a method. Chu Yunyao's room could be seen at a glance. Shangguan Yingying couldn't be here at all. The most important thing was that Chu Yunyao refused to admit it. They didn't know whether Shangguan Yingying was still alive. Rin Ziheng and others rushed over after seeing that Chu Yunyao's door was full of practitioners. After learning about the situation, they couldn't help but transmit a voice to Di Bei-chen. Junior brother Di, Chu Yunyao and Chu Yunshang are twin sisters. Could they be covering up for each other? Di Bei-chen was stunned after hearing the news. They only knew that Chu Yunyao had an elder sister, but they didn't know that they were twin sisters. Chapter 3720. With Di Bei-chen's words, all the cultivators present were stunned, and their faces flashed with deep astonishment. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Bei-chen in surprise, but soon understood. She was shocked. She really didn't expect that they were twin sisters. What do you mean by that? Chu Yunyao frowned. Of course I am Chu Yunyao. You said that you have been with others since you came back yesterday. This alibi is a bit too deliberate. You sisters are exactly the same. Maybe you are not Chu Yunyao at all, but Chu Yunshang. Her eyes were as bright as stars, shining with sharp and boundless light, as if she could see through everything, making people unable to hide. At the same time, there was a burst of discussion around. What Di Bei-chen said is right. The two sisters are exactly the same. Even if they are familiar with each other, they often mistake them for each other. If the two of them collude, it is really hard to say. I don't know how Chu Yunyao got into a conflict with Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Bei-chen and others have been looking for Shangguan Yingying since yesterday. Now they are here. I'm afraid it's not far from the truth. Who knows? There are many people who make trouble for Chu Yunyao on weekdays. It seems that they have a deep grudge. Chu Yunyao's face changed. What nonsense are you talking about? My sister has been busy with closed-door training these days and has not come out at all. Many people present know that this is not a secret. Who knows when she will come out of seclusion? Xiren's face was gloomy. He was sure that it was Chu Yunyao who did it. Although this woman insisted that it was reasonable, he could feel that this woman was a little guilty at that moment. There are many people who pay attention to my enchantment in the inner hall of Penglai. If she comes out, you will definitely not be the first to notice. Chu Yunyao's voice was slightly cold. Cut the crap. In short, if you can't find evidence, don't come to me to make trouble. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Yunyao no longer paid attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and directly closed the door. Looking at the tightly shut door, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others turned extremely ugly. Judging from Chu Yinyao's performance, I'm afraid she has made up her mind not to tell us where Ying Ying is. Di Beichan said in a low voice, his eyes cold. Under such circumstances, if we want to make her tell us everything, we have to be stronger than her. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Chu Yinyao's attitude had explained everything. Unless they forced Chu Yinyao to say it, they would not be able to get any information at all. Most importantly, their current strength was weaker than Chu Yunyao's. Damn it! Xiren's rage had reached its peak. I'm going to kill this woman. Xiren, calm down first. Deep Beichan grabbed Wen Xiren. It's not good for us to make trouble here now. We have to think of a way. Since she keeps saying that we have no evidence, she must be very confident in her approach. If we don't find the evidence, she will never let go. We can wait, but Ying Ying can't. Xiren couldn't help but go crazy. His mind was full of Shangguan Ying Ying's current situation. Chapter 37:21. Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichan looked at each other, their faces full of annoyance and helplessness. They clearly knew who did this, but because of their lack of strength, they could only stay here, which was really a grievance. If they had evidence, then as long as they found Master Long, they could solve this problem, but without evidence, Chu Yinyao would not admit it, and they had no other choice. I'm going to release the news. Whoever wants Chu Yinyao's life, I can help him refine the elixir. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice dropped to the freezing point. She would not let Chu Yinyao continue to be so arrogant. Di Beichan and others looked at each other. They believed that someone would be willing to do this method. However, it would take some time. At this moment, a voice came into Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Bailey Hongzhuang, if you want to save Shangguan Yingying, then go to the Green Mountain of Penglai Island alone. If you dare to tell this news to others, then Shangguan Yingying will only have a dead end. What to do? You think about it yourself. Don't try to hide it from me. Your every move is in my eyes. As long as they know, Shangguan Yingying will die immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly changed. It was really Chu Yinyao. This damn woman's scheming was so deep. It was just for a Yinling fruit, but she went through so much trouble. Di Beichan and others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's slightly changed expression and couldn't help but ask, Hongzhuang, what's wrong with you? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Nothing. It's useless to continue to stay here. Let's go back first. Di Beichan and others nodded. They had to go back and make a long-term plan. Inside the house, Yunshang, have you sent them away? He Jinjun walked to Chu Yunshang's side and asked casually. Chu Yunshang nodded. These guys don't seem easy to deal with. Yunyao really likes to cause trouble. Forget it. Although they have already become inner palace disciples, the difference in strength between them and us is too great. Yunyao is merely playing around. These fellows are simply unable to pose any threat to us. I heard that Bailey Hongzhuang has made a great contribution this time. It's really troublesome to make a move on her now. Chu Yunshang shook her head helplessly. I just came out of seclusion, and I have to help her with this kind of boring thing. I have to control her well in the future. Don't worry, it was done beautifully. Not a single trace was left behind. Don't worry. Yi Yanjun hugged Chu Yunshang. Those guys, if they die, they die. No one will care. Night slowly fell. Di Beichan and the others have been looking for clues, intending to find evidence. As long as someone had done it, there would definitely be some traces left behind. They did not believe that nothing would be left behind. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang also walked in the direction of Green Mountain when no one was paying attention. Since she heard Chu Yinyao's words, she was relieved. As long as she did not arrive at Green Mountain, then Yingying would be fine, so she waited until now to set off. Master, that Chu Yinyao deliberately attracted you. I'm afraid she is fully prepared to take your life. Chapter 3722. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix-like eyes narrowed slightly. I'd like to see what kind of inescapable net she has set up for me. Vaguely, she always felt that it was strange for Chu Yunyao to go through so much trouble for a yunling fruit. If Chu Yunyao did not want to, she could have done it directly yesterday afternoon. Peng Lai Palace did not prevent conflicts between practitioners. It was not a big deal to fight openly. It was a bit strange for her to go through so much trouble. Shangguan Yingying, it's dark. Do you think Bailey Hongzhuang will come to save you? Chu Yunyao looked at Shangguan Yingying in front of her with a smile. At this moment, she was tied to a tree. Her clothes were covered with blood, and the exposed wounds were very dazzling. She looked very miserable. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao angrily, but she was too lazy to speak. Pa! Chu Yunyao whipped Shangguan Yingying, and suddenly there was a blood-red wound on her body. This! Shangguan Yingying frowned, and her pretty face became distorted because of the pain, but she stubbornly refused to beg for mercy. In her opinion, this woman was completely crazy before. Yesterday, when she was in the room, she was informed that Xiren and Deep Beichun had a conflict with someone outside. She rushed over to take a look, but she did not expect that she would be directly knocked out after going out. When she woke up, she was already tied here by Chu Yunyao. You don't want to talk to me? Chu Yunyao stepped forward and pinched Shangguan Yingying's chin directly with one hand. The huge force made Shangguan Yingying's forehead ooze cold sweat. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang will not come. You took great pains to fight for the yunling fruit for her, but she is unwilling to save you. Are you disappointed? What do you know? Shangguan Yingying snorted coldly. A selfish and arrogant guy like you must think that no one is more important than yourself, right? Of course. Chu Yunyao raised her eyebrows proudly and loosened her grip on Shangguan Yingying's chin. 5 fingerprints had been imprinted on her chin, which showed that she had used a lot of strength before. In my opinion, you are just an idiot who has been used by others. You have been reduced to this point, but you still think that Bailey Hongzhuang is sincere to you. It's ridiculous. You're such a person, so of course you'd think so. Hongzhuang isn't someone you can compare to. Hee. Chu Yunyao chuckled. You idiot. If Bailey Hongzhuang really dies for you, it's not too late for you to say that. Otherwise, it just proves how stupid you are. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao speechlessly. It's just a yunling fruit. Do you have to go through so much trouble? What do you know? Chu Yunyao's face changed, and her eyes were sharp and paranoid. If it's just for yunling fruit, I naturally won't go through so much trouble. But Bailey Hongzhuang shouldn't what? Shangguan Yingying frowned and had some doubts in her heart. They had just met Chu Yunyao yesterday. What did Hongzhuang do? She shouldn't be liked by Duan Huali. Chu Yunyao's voice lowered, and her deep eyes seemed to be lost in thought. Shangguan Yingying was stunned. At this moment, she understood that the problem was here. Chu Yunyao did such a thing because of Duan Huali. Chapter 3723. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao speechlessly. She had never expected that Chu Yunyao would kidnap her because of this matter. This was an undeserved disaster for them. Okay? Duan Huali was simply a hindrance. That's what she did wrong. Chu Yunyao's face became ferocious. If she obediently accepted Duan Huali, it would be fine. How dare she ignore him? Why does Bailey Hongzhuang have to ignore him? Who does she think she is? As soon as these words came out, Shangguan Yingying was completely speechless. She looked at Chu Yunyao blankly for a moment and said, Are you crazy? You are crazy. Chu Yunyao scolded angrily. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao as if she was looking at a fool. If you're sick, go and treat it. What does this kind of thing have to do with us? It's not right to be liked by Duan Huali or not to like Duan Huali. What do you want? Shangguan Yingying was already very unhappy to be tortured by this crazy woman. Now hearing this crazy woman's strange remarks, Shangguan Yingying almost felt that there was something wrong with her brain. You don't understand feelings at all. Chu Yunyao's eyes were distant, with a trace of pain. Shangwan Yingying was dumbfounded. I don't understand feelings. I don't understand feelings. No matter how you look at it, there's something wrong with your brain, right? Duan Huali likes a lot of women, but each of them is just a game. He doesn't treat any of them sincerely. This kind of woman is nothing at all, Chu Yinyao said slowly. The next second, her eyes suddenly became sharp. But he has never treated a woman seriously. Shangguan Yingying, who thought that Chu Yunyao was completely crazy, understood a little at this moment. Although this woman's idea was very strange, she had to admit that she really liked Duan Huali. Otherwise, with Duan Huali's degree of unfaithfulness, ordinary women couldn't stand it all. She actually liked him all the time. Sure enough, only a weirdo would like a tortoise and a mung bean. I've never seen Duan Huali so serious. Chu Yinyao stared at Shangguan Yingying, her eyes paranoid and crazy. Bailey Hongzhuang has rejected him so much, but he doesn't care at all. He has never been angry with me because of a woman, because I have a different meaning to him. But he is angry with me for Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang. All this is Bailey Hongzhuang's fault. So, I want Bailey Hongzhuang to die. I will never allow another woman who treats Duan Huali differently to appear. Her dark eyes flashed with a strong, murderous intent. It's best that Bailey Hongzhuang appears today, then I can save myself a lot of trouble. If she doesn't appear today, I have to find another way. It was not until this moment that Shangguan Yingying finally understood why Chu Yunyao had taken great pains to use her to attract Bailey Hongzhuang. It was because Chu Yinyao didn't want Duan Huali to know that Bailey Hongzhuang's matter had something to do with her. In this way, Chu Yinyao really put a lot of thought into this matter. She had always regarded Duan Huali as a playboy. She liked Hongzhuang just because of her appearance. But now, according to Chu Yinyao's analysis, Duan Huali was very serious about Hongzhuang. Chapter 3724. There was some doubt in Shangguan Yingying's eyes. She found that Duan Huali's romantic debt was really amazing. This messy love triangle was really confusing. You're wrong. The person he really likes is me. Chu Yinyao's eyes changed, and she said, I look the same as my sister. He just accidentally mixed us up. Shangguan Yingying was slightly stunned, and immediately understood that Chu Yunyao and Chu Yunshang were twin sisters. In this way, Duan Huali didn't know the situation and mistook the two sisters for the same person. Did he? If that was really the case, then it would really be a good show. Maybe he likes your sister and mistook you for someone else? Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao in front of her. Anyway, the two sisters looked the same. Only Duan Huali knew whether he was pursuing Chu Yunshang or Chu Yunyao. As soon as these words came out, Chu Yunyao seemed to be stimulated by something, and her face was extremely ugly. The next second, she rushed to Shangguan Yingying like crazy. She pulled the latter's shoulders with both hands and shook them constantly. As she shook them, she shouted, What nonsense are you talking about? He likes me. It's me. The sharp voice was a little hysterical. Chu Yinyao seemed to be possessed. Shangguan Yingying was constantly shaken and hit against a tree. The pain made her injury worse again. Psycho! Shangguan Yingying shouted. She regretted it. She shouldn't have talked seriously with a lunatic. This woman couldn't listen to anything at all. The reason why Duan Huali treated her differently might be that she was mentally ill. Who could stand such madness? No wonder Duan Huali didn't accept it. Pan! Chu Yinyao slapped Shangguan Yingying's face, and her expression returned to calm. No matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang dares to attract Duan Huali's attention. It's her fault. I must kill her. Chu Yinyao's face was ferocious, and her eyes were gloomy. As for you, if you dare to compete with me, you will also die. At this moment, Shangguan Yingying didn't want to say anything more to Chu Yinyao. This woman was completely unreasonable. She thought she was a princess, and everyone should listen to her arrangements. She didn't understand how a woman with such a personality could live until now. She should have died a long time ago. However, she was most worried about Bailey Hongzhuang. Chu Yunyao had told her that if Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to save her, she had to come alone. With her understanding of Hongzhuang would never leave her alone. But once she came, Hongzhuang would be in danger. Although Chu Yunyao was a lunatic in her eyes, she had to admit that Chu Yunyao was indeed very strong. After being captured, she had resisted, but Chu Yunyao's cultivation had already reached the 9th level of the Purple Realm. She was no match for her at all. Although Hongzhuang could fight above her level, the gap between the 9th level of the Purple Realm was too big. If Bailey Hongzhuang really came alone, it would be really dangerous. She only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't come alone or didn't come at all. If something happened because of her, it would be the most unacceptable thing. At this moment, a subtle voice sounded in the distance. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang's familiar voice also sounded. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.